Daily Big Show with Jim Check and Ian Burns.
I'm Jim Check. Look at that, matchy-matchy today. Matchy-matchy. Nick's got to kind of figure us out, even us up a little bit there, but look at that. Other than the ties, complete matchy-matchy. How's our sound this morning? We got lots to talk about. We got lots to talk about this morning. Canada's battle for truth is one that cannot be lost, but we're seeing some hope actually. Like we've been talking about that for a little while now. There is like little sparks of light that shine through, and we've seen some of that this weekend, and we've seen some. This week, and it does give us a little bit of hope. And we even get some fan mail now, the old school fan mail. This one here is for Ian, and I got one. We've gotten fan mail from this guy several times, and he did write in, and one of the things he said is, "Freedom is in peril, defend it with all your might." And the people that used to stand for truth, right? Like the qualities of a knight, where truth, honesty, integrity meant more than anything, and you protect the weak.
Chivalry.
That doesn't happen much here in Canada, as we shared that with you yesterday, with corporations like Rogers basically preying on you, and they don't even care. It's all about the corporate profits. That corporation would never have been a knight in Arthur's table. We got some feedback here to show. This one here, I watch your channel all the time, usually comment. So, is that the one I shared yesterday? Is my Alzheimer's kicking in again? But anyway.
No, I think this is a new one.
Is that a new one? There you go.
I think so, yeah.
And it says, I don't know, hey, listen to those idiots all the time. Hey. We use it to really kind of drive the point home. It's tough, for sure. It's tough sometimes to listen. But I do want to kick off the show with something. It seems like the legacy or mainstream media, and it's not just in Canada. Canada's just like an amplification of it. But it's in the left-leaning media across the world. And this interview here, from The Economist with Elon Musk. Again, you better be ready when you're going to talk to Elon Musk. And we're going to kick it off with this here. We're going to show you this bit of an interview here from The Economist.
You support not just the populist right, but the far right. In fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I support the normal people.
Okay.
What do you call the far right? Falsely.
You think is the normal person. Okay.
Yes. Literally, you could go back 10 or 15 years, and these policies were completely normal. In fact, one of the tricks that I think is funny. One of the things that's quite funny is to take a speech from Obama and Hillary, and then go to someone and say, who's sort of on the sort of what I call the lunatic left, and say, what do you think of the speech by Trump? I'm like, oh wow, he's the worst person ever. Actually, that was a speech by Obama, or actually, that was a speech by Hillary.
I agree. No, I agree that the center of gravity in this country has shifted. Certainly, the Democratic Party shifted to the left. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people like Rupert Lowe. I'm
fringe
talking
right,
about
please.
People.
It's actually just normal people. It's just normal people. It's just normal people. And and here are the principles. And tell me which of these sound terrible. That we should have secure borders. That we should have safe cities. That we should have sensible spending. Which of those three are far right fringe? And I would like to just admonish you and the media for the absurd characterization of the far right. It is false and misleading and nonsense. Please keep this part in.
We'll keep all of this in.
That's good. Elon Musk goes on there knowing that he's going to get attacked. Challenge the politicians to come on this show, which is very much center of the road. David Eby, Wab Kinew, Mark Carney, Melanie Jolie, Stephen Guilbeault, all of you, come on here. Elon Musk went into the lion's den, and he's fine with it. Absolutely fine with it. When has Mark Carney faced an interview like that? We're going to show you more clips of that later in the show. When has Mark Carney faced an interview like that?
You seem to be forgetting that he has
I
been
know.
interviewed by that
but
very
not
woman.
as tough though, right? You know what I mean? There's
Well, that
definite.
gives you an idea, does it not, of that lady's politics? Another thing that might give you an idea of her politics is if you listen to her voice as she struggles to pronounce the word agree. Agree, I agree. If you've seen Blackadder,
She did a lot of
you
this
know
in
what
that
that's
interview.
suggestive
A
of.
lot of this.
This is a woman of extraordinary privilege who, as Elon Musk says in another part of this interview, lives a cloistered existence. Yes, she does. Absolutely. That is precisely what she lives. Even though she denies it and says, no, I don't. And says, when was the last time you were in England? You know, it's the same old hauteur, dare I say. And lest we forget, the parties that Elon Musk supports around the world, I think probably the most prominent one is Alternative for Deutschland, the AfD in Germany, which is principally supported by people in the east of Germany who are the kind of economic left behinds. You know, poorer people. They're the ones that support the AfD. As usual, once again, we have a woman of unimaginable privilege punching down at people with nothing, who are telling people like her that life has become unbearable. We can't live like this anymore. It's too much of a struggle. And she responds by saying, I live in England and it's great. I'm sure it's great in Hampstead. I'm sure it's great in Chiswick. Just because you get on the tube for 5 minutes in Zone 1 doesn't mean you're a part of London and life in England. But this woman, like so many of her class, seems to think that she understands what life is like for the humble pleb. I mean, it's just so tiresome. And Elon behaved quite admirably, I think. Yeah, he certainly shut her up anyway.
She did a lot of we're going to show you more clips of it later in the show, but it's an interview you must watch because he tears down the narratives. He tears down the narrative, stands up into the wind. I mean, usually people like him do not stand against the narrative. And this narrative has impoverished like nations. Like look at the state of Europe. Look at the state of the UK. Ian can testify to his own experience in the UK. Look at what's happening in Canada. 10 million Canadians now face food insecurity because the left pretends to care about the left behinds, but it's really pushing more people into the left behind as they cater to the selective few. Rogers Communication that we highlighted yesterday, go back and watch that. The Intelecoms, the NWs, the corporate elite, the dairy cartel, supply management, the few at the expense of the many. Like in a nation like this right now, it didn't even come up in that whole big meeting there with all the premiers there, didn't come up that 10 million Canadians right now face food insecurity. 25% of this nation face food insecurity. Didn't come up. Wild.
But I mean, I just want to say as well, like, just go back on people like her, like that woman. There are obviously equivalents in Canada and the US and everything. People who live in a sort of rarefied, sequestered, protected, walled-off part of the country where everything's great. I've been to those places in England, but we don't have to talk about England. Let's talk about Canada. Let's talk about the US. We've all been, haven't we, to like parts of Canada. Let's stick to Canada. We've all been to parts of Canada that are just like beautiful and happy and safe and everything's great and easy and everyone seems happy and prosperous. We've all been to those places. It's just so frustrating that there are people in, she's the editor of The Economist. I thought she was the economics editor, but she's actually the overall editor. But there are people like her who you have to say are like part of the elite. She's part of the media elite. The Economist is one of the most important publications in the world. So it's a very prominent position that she has. But she just has this completely distorted perspective where in her mind, everything in the country she lives in is like the place in that country where she lives. She can't think about the places where it's harder to live, where people suffer, where there's like endemic crime or drug addiction, or since she mentioned Rupert Lowe, predatory Muslim rape gangs who pick out non-Muslim children to rape, which is still routine, still occurs in England. You won't even say it in those terms because it's too painful and upsetting for her to say that. So it's left to people like Rupert Law to say it. He says it, and then she attacks him and says some variation of, well, it's lovely in Hampstead. I mean, give it a rest.
And then Mark Carney's social media expert, social influencer, put out this piece. We're not going to play without the sound. Play without sound, Nick. And this is like, as 10 million Canadians suffer, they put out this piece here. And
we all set?
Yeah, go ahead. Just do it without sound. That's good. And then you did hear the first thing he said. We all set? We all set? It's the clowns. It's like bring out the clowns. Here's the first clown to show up. Listen to this. Listen to this. This is one of Canada's most, according to the media, most popular politicians. Listen to the seriousness of this guy. When Canada has 10 million people facing food insecurity, high unemployment, like we could go on bankruptcies, an economy that's shrinking. Go ahead, play it, Wob.
But this is what we have to do as Canadians today. We have to be able to make the investments to advance healthcare, take care of our seniors, take care of our kids, at the same time that we're standing up for our economy, that we're standing up for national unity. And so what I saw was a united Team Canada, and I'm very, very proud. This is a country that can do great things. We've defeated the Nazis. We've done tremendous tech innovation over the years, and we're the first nation of hockey globally. And so being able to handle healthcare at the same time that we grow the Canadian economy is definitely something that we're going to be able to do too.
We'll have.
Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Well, I watched this whole thing, and that combined with some, I'm almost tempted to say gratuitous passages spoken in French, just didn't seem to make sense. Why? I was like, why are you speaking French? Like, you didn't need to do that. But all of that combines to make me think that the man has national ambitions. Because obviously in Canada, if you want to be prime minister, you've got to show off your French, haven't you? It's a little funny though. He talks about the Nazis. I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before. He accidentally, it was one of the funniest things that's happened in Canadian politics in many months. He accidentally came out in favor of fascism, where he said, if you put all of the sticks together and you hold them together, then you can't break them. We'll be a bundle of sticks, which is literally the fascist. That's where fascism comes from. That's literally where the word fascism comes from. The Roman practice of, it's not really relevant, but for certain ceremonies, they put sticks together and they paraded them around. Very, very amusing. It's something that Mussolini and all those cool figures used to say. But now apparently he's against fascism now. He's learned.
He had to really dig into the past to find success, though, right? We defeated the Nazis. That's the Canadian success story right now. The hockey, we haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1993. I'd like to remind Wob Canoe. No longer our game.
But also, where did those people who made those tech innovations, where did they go again? Where are they now? Where did they die? That goes back many years. Going down to the US, a lot of Canada's sort of best and brightest.
And our greatest
But also
strength.
not just the Nazis. A little bit more recently than 1945, Canada was on the winning side in the battle against the Soviet Union. Why didn't you mention that? That's recent memory. That's living memory. That Canada was on the winning side in the Cold War. That was quite good, wasn't it? That we beat that evil empire of murderers and filth. Was that not a good thing?
It's just petty politics. It's like for the people that don't want to engage their brain. Like I'm telling you, engage your brain. Our greatest asset, which is what they're trying to get Danielle Smith to do. Lucky that Danielle Smith is running Alberta. because they're trying to get her, because they know she has the hammer. Wab Kinew has no hammer. Wab Kinew's lucky he can wrestle up a couple of hockey sticks. And he talks tough, and it's just, go watch some of his social media. It's cringeworthy. It's just AOC, like even at a Timu level. It's just cringeworthy. And if this is what Canada's going to look forward to as the next Prime Minister of Canada, this is not a serious person. We need serious people. We need serious people with integrity. This is literally a clown show. But you know who?
I would say he has a significantly better chance of becoming Prime Minister than Danielle Smith or Scott Moe. Make of that what you will. But that's the reality, isn't it? Like, he's behaving in a way. I think it's hard to deny this. I'm struggling to reject this. That he's behaving in a way that he knows will be received favourably by a large chunk of the Canadian public. You know, he's putting on a show, and this is what he thinks they want. I'm inclined to think that he's correct.
To smarten up. You need to bring more people here to watch the Really Big Show, because this cannot be what Canada looks at as like the next leader of this nation, because this nation is in trouble. We're going to show you evidence of that in the next little bit. But here's Mark Carney asked directly about his lie.
For the Prime Minister, you told CTV News explicitly on July 12 that the splitting of profits or net revenue with the U.S. from the Gordie Howe Bridge would only happen after accounting for the debt of the bridge, but that's not what the text of the New Deal says. So, was that a lie, and were you downplaying your concessions to Trump?
Thank you for the question. First, let's be clear about what the deal is and isn't with respect to the bridge. And the first thing is, this is a good deal. This is a good deal for Canadian businesses, workers. It's a good deal for the future of our commerce with them. Put in context, there is about $300 billion a year of trade on the land link between Michigan and Ontario.
That's good enough, because it's just going to word salad from here. But they notice the face touch. Notice the face. You know, all the touching of the face, discomfort. It's. And then, you know, he went on to an excuse because it was a cowboy hat, and it was, you know, like, because it was the Calgary Stampede, and he was talking about the old deal, not the new deal. I think we covered a lot of this yesterday. But it's relevant in a few ways, though. You know, he's trying to explain himself about misleading Canadians about the concession. The Prime Minister said he'd previously given the false information about the agreement, stated that any sharing of the toll won't happen until Canada's debt's repaid, when in fact the deal mandates the U.S. has given half the net bridge and crossing revenues for 15 years. And then he claimed he'd been referring to the deal signed in 2012. How could he even make that? And the reporters go, okay. And Doug Ford immediately after that jumps in to defend him as well.
But it's also like it's the abusive relationship thing, isn't it? Like, he didn't say sorry or anything like that. No. He just said, you know, I could have explained myself better. I could have communicated better. Or did you get caught out in a lie? Maybe.
Here's Michael
But
Cooper.
It's totally dead. It's dead as a story. It's nowhere. I mean, I did the rounds today. I searched long and comprehensively, and I did not see it really anywhere. It's not being given the prominence that it ought to be. Instead, this ribbon cutting for the bridge, that's the top story now. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at CBC and they're talking about protests in India. That's one of their top stories.
Yeah. You got to pile some stuff in front of it here. But here's Michael Cooper, who we've had on the show in the past, with his take on the bridge. We'll play a small piece of it.
Mark Carney lied to Canadians. He lied to Canadians in no uncertain terms about a secret deal that he struck with the U.S. regarding the Gordie Howe Bridge, which, of course, Canada built at 100% of the cost, on the agreement that Canada would collect 100% of the toll revenue until the cost of the bridge was fully repaid. Carney claimed under his secret deal that nothing had changed. He said unequivocally that, quote, any sharing of toll revenue won't happen until all the debt is repaid. His words. Yesterday, we saw the deal that Carney was forced to release after mounting political pressure. And it turns out that what Carney claimed is completely false, that
That's good.
the U.S. will, in fact, immediately collect.
And the only reason they released it wasn't political pressure, is because it was released by the Americans. Other than that,
Well, we
you never
don't
would have
know
seen
if
it.
they signed off on it. I guess that's another thing that we'll never know.
And then we're going to skip this next one, Nick. Go down this one here with the finger up here. That's the finger. You can see the irritation in this clip here. Watch the irritation, like the eyes and that, if you want to be a body language expert.
Yeah, could I have explained it better on a Sunday morning at Stampede? Yeah, with a cowboy hat on? Yes, I could have explained it better. And I explained it better in London, Ontario at GDLS.
No, we want the other one,
appreciate the
Nick. Sorry, not
opportunity.
that one. That's his cowboy hat, the next one here. This one.
Something in what I said, which is, you said my positivity about getting a compromise. I didn't say that. I said that's what we want. That's what we're working towards. We have many strengths and assets. We're going to negotiate hard for that. And the reason we haven't signed a partial deal is because we're focused on those sectors. So that's where we are.
That was a little bit of anger showing through the facade as the veneer starts to wear off, right? Where he's been challenged about lying in this one, and then he's pushing back. Like I said, some of the reporters are seeing weakness, and maybe they're just servile because they're just not smart enough. But they're seeing the weakness now, and they're starting to press a little bit anyway, because there's lots to press on.
They give up very quickly, though, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they had him banged to rights. But they were extraordinarily supine when they had the opportunity to go in for the kill. I was just thinking about this from Mark Carney's perspective. What a privilege, like what an amazing place to find yourself in charge of Canada, in charge of the Liberal Party as well. And you've got this for a press. These are your like chief scrutinizers. Like they are just so timid. It's so easy to run rings around them. And I mean, I sometimes I feel like when I say these things, like it's quite patronizing. I definitely don't mean to be patronizing or condescending, but I'm going to point it out anyway, just in case it isn't obvious to some people. That when he talks about the cowboy hat, that's an attempt to use humor to be lighthearted, to distract people from the sin. It's a very common manipulative technique. You know, that's a very common method of manipulation. Somebody's caught doing something very bad and wrong, and their response is very tricksy and slimy, like that, one might say, like saying, oh no, I was actually talking about the deal from 2012, even though that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And he says, maybe that wasn't so wise, you know, on a Sunday morning with a cowboy hat on. It's like, ha, 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 everyone. And then let's move on. You know, if you're sat with your legs crossed and you're enraptured by this man, I hate to be the one to tell you, you are being manipulated, and it's not even very sort of high standard manipulation either. This is very, very basic. You know,
it's very
manipulation
transparent.
101. And you have to acknowledge at this point that this is a very tricksy chappy. He's a very tricksy fellow, and he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve, and he's very inclined to you know, to be a little bit difficult and a little bit clever and shrewd and weasel-like, you might say. He's got a lot of tricks, this chap. He's not like honest Mark who just comes out with it. There's a lot going on behind those eyes, and interesting that I said eyes without thinking about it, but it's all in the eyes. Just look at his eyes. I mean, I don't want to turn this into a shrink session, but he's a much more sort of complicated and morally ambiguous fellow than most people seem to realize.
We shared it with you yesterday, that quote, when you care about the people, you tell them the truth. when there's a hidden agenda, you just lie. And this has been evident over and over and over and over again. Like, this is a pattern. This isn't a one-off. And if you want to make a joke, so anytime you want to lie to your partner or your spouse, just put the cowboy hat on and then say, go ahead and ask me some questions. And you say, hey, it works for Mark Carney. All you got to do is wear a cowboy hat, and then, can't be held responsible.
But it's the charm. Liars and manipulators have been doing this since the beginning of time. Many examples throughout history. You get caught, you think on your feet, you try and cover it up with a new lie, and then you turn up the charm and hope that it'll disappear, and then you move on to the next subject and you hope that it just goes away.
But this one's blatant. This one's absolutely blatant, and it cost him some political capital with even the hardened kind of like Carneyites. They have to be in the back of their mind saying, like, that was blatant. And even the ones that are going to let him off on this, they cost him political capital. Like, there's a crack. You can see the crack. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they got this shining persona, and all of a sudden there's like this deep scar in his face. You can kind of see it, and you can start to see the veneer start to chip away. And the reporters see it now too. Like, some of the ones that are more honest. We have a Hall of Famer going to join us at 10:30. Ian Connerty, not the same spelling. Ian Connerty, a Hall of Famer, is going to join us at 10:30. We're going to talk about journalism and media in Canada and the state of media in Canada. Here's Danielle Smith, because she has the hammer. Imagine that, eh? Imagine that after years of just being trampled by the Liberals and Stephen Guilbeault. Here it is, Alberta holds the hammer. Just like, in curling, Alberta has the hammer. And they're just like, use it, use it. Danielle Smith, listen.
The Prime Minister did say that if those tariffs did come to pass, everything is on the table. Did the Prime Minister ask you, as Alberta's Premier, to prepare if Canada ultimately does decide to retaliate somehow?
Well, I already offered. I said, I think I know what the Americans want. They want us to sell them substantially more energy. And so if you need to make a promise of selling 3 million more barrels a day to the United States, I'm in. And we'll do whatever it takes to be able to make that happen. That, to me, is, I think, the positive way of approaching it, is that we know that we have products that the Americans want, whether it's our oil and gas, uranium, critical minerals, or other products. And I think going in and saying, hey, let's do something big and bold together so that we can not only have energy security, but energy dominance. I think that energy is going to play a big part of that conversation, and I hope that's where the conversation goes. But I don't think you go into a constructive negotiation promising to punch someone in the nose.
Really? Has that worked, Doug? Doug, has that worked? How's it working out for you, Doug? It's a good thing there's a calm person that actually has the hammer in Canada. Like, they're just literally begging her. I mean, you can imagine the pressure being put on her at this meeting here from all the clowns, the Wob Canoes, the David Eby's. Like, David Eby, can you imagine Danielle Smith listening to David Eby, who just recently called her like a treasonist in the province of treasonous?
Yeah. But also who is willing to frustrate and block, or try to frustrate and block, another pipeline, so to economically strangle Canada. He was willing to do that. Now he's going to be tapping her on the shoulder and saying, for the good of Canada. Like, this is about Canada. I mean, David Eby is well the same guy that lashes out at every Canadian institution that's ever existed and says that it's fixed. It's all a fix against BC. It's completely unfair. Quebec and Ontario get advantages, and Saskatchewan gets advantages, and et cetera, and the courts are bent, and all sorts of things that he likes to claim. Yeah, I mean, Eby's not the best place to deliver that message, I don't think.
We've been asking David Eby to come on the show relentlessly, and we sent emails. So I'm going to put his email address in here, which is public knowledge. I'm not giving any away. And if you could go and send him an email and say, we would like you to appear on the Really Big Show. We would like you to speak to Canada and to British Columbians about the state of British Columbia. It's pretty easy. Elon Musk went on The Economist and knew that was going to be a tough interview. I've interviewed David Eby in the past. We're an accredited news organization. There is no reason he doesn't come on this show. None whatsoever. other than maybe he'll label us as like he did with Juno News and call us some names or something like that. Just come on and answer some questions. Half an hour. I think Elon Musk sat down for an hour, didn't he, in that interview?
Well, yeah, while it was, much of it was wasted. You know, you sat there talking to one of the most important industrialists, technologists, whatever, in the history of the world. And you're asking him stupid questions about Twitter.
But you know what? The questions matter to them, though. The questions matter to them and their agenda. Because it's not about, like, how are you going to change the world? Because he runs literally the most important corporations in the world, between Tesla and SpaceX and Neuralink and Boring Company, all those things. You could ask him about how he's changing the world. He's the biggest disruptor this planet has ever seen. Instead, she delves into, like, she asked him questions like, do you know that people loathe you?
Well, she was also, like, talking about what he posted on X. Like, I mean, you're not interviewing some, like,
agenda.
No-mark, low-grade politician or something like that. You're not interviewing, like, some sad-act MP in England. You're talking to somebody who's actually quite important.
Here's Scott Moe.
Canadian or American can argue is the most important trade deal that each of us have.
So you don't want to fight. Almost can.
I want a trade agreement with the United States of America. They're our largest trading partner, have been for all of our life, yours and I's, and likely will be into the future. At the end of the day, why would you want to fight with your largest trading partner, regardless of what they're saying? We need this trade agreement.
Thank you. Sorry.
Two voices of reason in a sea of clowns.
I haven't seen that press conference, but I'd be interested to know if the journalists had the sense and the wit to ask him what he thinks of America's frustrations with Canada's dealing with China, which was done in part to placate Scott Moe.
New
If
World
you remember,
Order.
it was
We haven't done that one for a while.
He was there, yeah, he was there looking over. Let's not forget, he was there for a reason, Scott Moe, because he wanted the canola industry and other agricultural industries to fare better in China, and China's price was take our EVs, which upset the United States. So, you know, it's a very tangled web, and Scott Moe's definitely in it.
And if you wonder what side the media is on, listen to this little interchange with David Cochrane here.
Constructive to go into a negotiation saying or else, right? I mean, I think everybody is trying to get them to find out what the or else is, and I don't think you go into a negotiation promising to punch someone in the nose. You go into a negotiation talking about a win-win, and I think that that's more the Prime Minister's style, and I'm glad to see that. What I would say is you have to be very careful not to put things on the table that you're not prepared to do. And I'm going to try to prevent Canada from making a very dumb decision of putting energy on the table, because Line 5 goes through Michigan. If you cut off energy to the United States, they can cut off Line 5 and cut off energy to Ontario and Quebec. So no aviation fuel, no diesel, no gasoline, and we don't want to do that. So I would just say that it may sound tough to say those kind of things, but if you cannot do it practically and you're not prepared to live with the consequences of doing it, don't threaten it. And so there may be other things that with the passage of time that will come up, but I would say it's far more constructive to go into negotiations saying, hey, we want a deal, we want to maintain this really strong trade relationship, and let's see if we can both get a win out of it. That's my approach, and I think that's the Prime Minister's approach.
Right. I mean,
that's what Ian said yesterday. And when we talked about it, strike a king, strike him dead. Like, I mean, like, what do you know, are you ready for the repercussions? Are you ready when they're they're the giant in the room? They're literally the economic giant. They could destroy our currency. They could do so many things to Canada. Our currency's hanging by a thread. We're going to show you some of that in the next little while. Like, our economy hangs by a thread. Whether you like it or not, what Trump said is more real than it's not. Canada exists as it is because of the United States. Harsh realities for some that
It's
want to be like crazed.
the fact that Danielle Smith's the one that's coming out and saying this just, goes to show how strategically inept the Canadian elite really is. Remember we did Geopolitics 101 with Peppa Pig? This is Geopolitics 101 with Danielle Smith. It's left to her, a provincial leader who's not supposed to really have any business in international relations. That's supposed to be the Liberal Party, the federal Liberal Party in Ottawa. They're supposed to be the international relations experts. And there she is, just stating the most obvious truth, that they can hurt us more than we can hurt them. What would Peppa Pig say? Imagine you're in the lecture theatre, Peppa Pig's teaching you about geopolitical strategy. Don't do something to your rival opponent or whatever if they can do back to you 10 times worse. Just don't do that. I mean, surely is that not obvious? Peppa Pig, I know Peppa Pig's got that PhD from Harvard in international relations, but it's not that complex, is it? And there's Danielle Smith coming out with this as if it's like an obscure perspective, And you've got like David Cochrane's like, all right, that's an interesting take. It's like, what?
Got to get the pen.
It's
Ian,
a
you got to have
water is
the pen.
wet kind of take.
You got to do the pen.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, but should we maybe attack Pearl Harbor right now?
It's like, do you walk into a lion's cage at the zoo? There's like 10 lions sitting around, and you just walk up to the biggest one and just smack it across the face and say, what are you going to do about it?
That'll show you.
That's what Doug would do. Because you know who he would do? He would put you in front of him as he slapped the lion, and then he'd say, as he ran out of the cage, and then you were left to fend for yourself. Because that's what it's like. Because they don't feel the repercussions of their actions.
I also think that there's some talk about strategy. I think there's been a little bit of strategizing between the big wigs, and they've decided that they want Doug Ford to play the role of bad cop. They want Danielle Smith to play the role of good cop. And Carney would like to have himself in the position where he's kind of like the umpire. And he's like, I got this guy here and I got this, she's doing this. It's like, come on, like I can hold them back for so long, Don. But Dougie's going to do it. He's going to do it. He's crazy. I think they've tried to sort of make the most of that. But again, I mean, I don't really think that's particularly wise. I can't see that. I don't look at that and see master strategy, I have to confess.
We got a clip here from Vasi Kapelis here, as she talks about this, as they all came together and they say they're all standing together as Team Canada. She said this lasts about 27 days till D-Day, if you want to use Mark Carney's like we're at war narrative.
If I had to put a timestamp on how long this unity lasts, I could be very precise, 27 days, because that is how long we have until we know whether the new tariffs that Donald Trump is threatening actually materialize. The Prime Minister indicated today he would not take retaliatory action until we know that they do materialize. And when he does take that retaliatory action, should it be necessary, that is where that unity falls apart, because the key piece of leverage that Canada has is most certainly its energy exports, oil, potash, electricity, and critical minerals. And there is not unanimity around the Premier's table about how far to go in limiting those exports, blocking them, adding additional taxes, should any of that be necessary. And in 27 days, it's going to be up to the Prime Minister about whether to pull the trigger on that, and he will face immense political pressure from different parts of this country and different premiers to do different things.
And I put the president on notice yesterday.
That's good. I doubt
That's a funny little excerpt, isn't it?
I doubt if
retrospect.
Danielle Smith and Scott Moe are going to jeopardize the provincial economies to appease the hauteur of Wab Canoes, Doug Fords, and David Eby's.
But it's not just Alberta that would suffer. No way. Because of what we just said. They would hit back, and then all of a sudden there would be no gas. There'd be no gasoline in Toronto. What are you going to do then? What are you going to do then when you're like biggest city, financial hub, whatever, has like signs outside gas stations saying, sorry, no fuel? Because that's what would happen if the Americans struck back in a way that I think we could predict that they would strike back. We rely on them as well for energy. Don't forget that. So it's not like Alberta would be the primary victim of this. I think the whole country would be plunged into an abyss.
So there you go. They met for 3 days in PEI. They used all kinds of goofy war analogies. And what did they accomplish? What did they get done? You can put that next slide up. What really got done in Charlottetown? They got a deal 14 months later, 18 months later, depending on which timeline you want to use, of Team Canada to get some liquor flowing across Canada. Except for one, because I thought there was 10 provinces. We talked about it yesterday. One province said, nah, nah. And the province with the most influence, really, it influences the electorate here in Canada. And it influences the Liberal Party hugely. So Mark Carney, how much influence does Mark Carney and the Liberals have over Quebec? Because they couldn't get Quebec to sign on to this deal. Because Quebec looks after Quebec. Quebec sees itself as a separate entity.
A nation.
A nation, yeah, there you go. But Alberta, if it sees itself as a nation, Alberta's treasonists and, for some strange reason, Quebec gets special privilege even when it comes to that.
They're also frauds. They're gauche frauds who pretend to have their own culture, according to whoever it was that said that. Was it Stephen Guilbeault? I'm going to guess it was Guilbeault who said that.
Let's move on to the other tariffs that were just put up there, and it was this has to do with China and slave labor. Here's Jameson Greer with CNN's Jake Tapper.
The president, since his first term, has put it into his trade agreements to try to get countries to do this. So unfortunately, it's not new. We've been trying for a long time. And finally, we're not in favor of sweatshops, and we don't want anyone else to be in favor of it either.
So there's products.
Sorry, Jameson. I wasn't yawning at you, son.
Products from dozens of countries will be hit with import tax between 10 and 12.5% starting today. The U.S. said the tariffs are in response to the global failure to deal with forced labor. Canada is amongst the countries targeted. Canada will be in the 10% category. Michael Maw there. We got a picture of Michael Maw and Mark Carney there. He said, unless you've seen it with your own eyes, how can you believe it's true? How can you believe the mistreatment of the Uyghurs is true unless, you went there yourself? He's going to invite you to come and look. And what Michael Maw said in committee there when he attacked the witness there wasn't frowned upon by Mark Carney. Literally celebrated the next night at an event. As they went to an event, and then Mark Carney sang his praises at an event the next night. Something that is one of the most despicable things on public display, especially after unanimously the Parliament voted against slave labor. But now, not so much.
Parliament unanimously voted to condemn the Chinese Communist Party for committing genocide in Xinjiang against the Uyghur people. Michael Ma, though, has a different idea, different epistemology. But as for this, Jameson Greer, these tariffs, I'd love to think that the Americans really hated slave labor and everything, and this was some kind of crusade against an evil practice, like the Royal Navy going around trying to sink slave ships in the 19th century. But I don't think it is. I'm sorry to say, I don't think it really has anything to do with slave labor whatsoever. I think it's because the other 10% tariff got struck down. So they've used a different law. They're quite smart. The people in the people designing this trade policy are quite capable, competent, intelligent people, and they thought, all right, the court got us on this one, let's just do this. I don't think they really care about slave labor. That said, however, the likes of Michael Marr, that behavior from Michael Marr and Mark Carney, lest we forget, Michael Marr's an unimportant person. Michael Marr's a complete nobody. He doesn't really matter at all. The important person is Mark Carney. And Mark Carney's reaction to Michael Marr's atrocious behavior in committee, that's basically just saying to the Americans, there you go then, like, tariff us. Like, we give up. It's like waving the white flag. It's surrender, isn't it? So, you know, they made it extremely easy for the Americans to hit Canada on that subject. Though, like, yeah, I will reiterate, I really don't think this has anything to do with slave labor.
The food professor, he said he had a great conversation with a Quebec dairy farm about the future of supply management and quota. And he said, yeah, that's right, Quebec. He reached out and he gets it. Yeah, there is dairy farmers that actually have a conscience as they dump millions of gallons of milk down the drain while 10 million Canadians go without. He's got a really good podcast, actually, the food professor. This supply management.
He makes these little AI images all the time.
He's got an AI thing going on.
They're quite cute sometimes. I like his style.
But supply management, you pay for it, and it's a select few that benefit. Again, the media has kind of like wrapped it up and packaged it like it's something that we must all suffer for. Meanwhile, you pay for it. Well, the privileged few enjoy great benefits. It's a supply lobby, and the media is in on it. Like, they protect this because they spend a lot of money on these media networks. They spend a lot of money, and you pay for it. In a nation that has 10 million people with food insecurity, milk is an essential. Milk, cheese. You'd think the government would say, we don't care about supply management. We care about feeding the 10 million people that have food insecurity in this nation. And I'm not sure why the Conservatives haven't picked up this mantle and said, like, this is ridiculous. How can we let 10 million people have food insecurity, and we're also protecting supply management? How powerful is this lobby?
Well, the last Conservative to have a go at it was Mad Max, and look what happened to him. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but he's the last big figure that I can think of on the Conservative side that expressed dissatisfaction with supply management.
Yeah, nobody seems to want to go after it. The food professor, us, like, who else is really talking about it? I'm going to tell you, we get this nice fan mail. If you get a dairy bucket, don't eat it. Delivered at your house.
It takes bravery. At the end of the day, it takes bravery, and it takes somebody like Mark Carney, somebody who is, like, extraordinarily popular, and especially with that sort of side, like, they look at him as their boy. He's very popular in Quebec, which would be the most opposed to this. It takes somebody like him to exchange that popularity for change. Change to the political system, and just do it and say, look, I know this sucks, everyone. I know I'm going to upset a lot of people, but we have to do this for the sake of Canada. And then maybe he takes like a 6 or 7 or 8 point hit to his poll figures or something like that. Like that. It takes somebody like that with the bollocks to just stand up and say, I'm just doing this because it's the right thing. And I believe that I'm popular enough to see it through. But obviously Mark Carney doesn't really act like that, does he? Sadly.
Yeah, based on his track record, he's not going to make that stand. He's not going to put the Canadian public first. I have not seen him yet put the Canadian public first. I've yet to see a policy.
He's never made a stand, to my knowledge.
You put this one in here.
Well, his defenders would say he made a stand with climate change, but he was, he was leaning into something that was already very, very popular. It was like a classic corporate move, which is like being one step ahead of what they think the zeitgeist is. It's like, all right, the zeitgeist is going towards massive like environmentalism. Let's lean into it now, so it looks like we were ahead of the curve. That's what it looks like to me. His environmental activism, which he has since dropped because it's out of fashion now. You know, if he was truly principled, like I said when I was referencing this masterpiece, if he was truly principled, he would stick to it even now. And he would say, like Justin Trudeau, he would say, look, I know you're hungry, but sometimes you've just got to think more about the environment because that's more important. Like, I think Justin Trudeau really believed that. Whereas Mr. Values, I'm not convinced that he ever really did believe it, to be honest.
Well, we appreciate Danielle, and we're sad to inform you that it's going to be tough to get any type of medical care because she said you hit the like button so hard she got a hernia. So we appreciate it, but...
Well, Global Traveler lives in Mexico, doesn't he? Maybe he can hook her up with some clinics. That would do it.
You put this next slide in here. I don't know, maybe you can... Did you put this one in? The normal Canada promises capture carbon?
Oh yeah, I just thought this was really funny because Fridays for Future is obviously, that was the name. That was the semi-literate name for Greta Thunberg's, not going to school. Truancy. Her truancy movement was called Fridays for Future. And so this is a group that's inspired by it and based in Ottawa. It's like one of the Canadian versions. And they describe carbon capture as, quote, greenwashing bullshit technology, end quote. So I just thought it was funny because we've had this conversation. We had this conversation with Heather Exner-Perot, didn't we? A little bit. We went into this briefly about how basically nobody likes carbon capture. Nobody likes it. Stephen Guilbeault doesn't like it. Remember, Greta Thunberg, the Thunbergites don't like it. Obviously, noble people don't like it. The right doesn't like it. The oil companies don't like it. People who have to fill up or who have to pay for it, have to fill up their car, or they have to pay for the pathways and things like that through their taxes. They don't like it. So who likes it? As far as I'm aware, that's who likes it. Literally him, that one bloody man. That's who likes it.
Why? Now do why?
Yeah. Well, that's the mystery.
It's on the Brookfield website. It'll tell you why. Brookfield is the largest investor in this technology that is no longer feasible in other parts of the world because they don't have the taxation credits paid for by you. You're going to pay for it. You're going to pay for it to make sure that investment by Brookfield has an ROI. And that's basically what he said. There's a way to get oil to the coastline, and it's through the tax man, and I'm the tax man. You pay the piper. And Mark Carney's the piper. Like, it's just, and then the oil field companies are just like, because they pushed against it hard when they were going to pay for it. And then Mark Carney says, well, hey, well, if we fix that, we figured out who's going to pay for it. And that's you. You're going to pay for that. And then the oil field company said, okay, works for us. We're going to pay for you're going to pay for the pipeline, and you're going to pay for the carbon capture. And the oil field companies are going to get their oil to market. And Mark Carney is going to fill his pockets. And you will pay all the bills. You'll take all the risk. You'll pay all the bills because you didn't speak up. Because, when the discussions were going on, you didn't say anything. They asked around the room, who wants to pay for it? You didn't say no. The oil field company said, like, heck no. So they figured out who could pay for it. You. This is how you're being abused.
As far as I'm aware, just to continue, I don't think we've discussed the joint statement. Do we have it in the story load? The joint statement from the meeting in Charlottetown. I don't think we discussed it, did we? So there's the link if you want to open that up, Nick. It's above or below this picture here. Yeah. Very interesting, and nobody's reported on this. I feel like nobody read it because it's just like a massive wall of text, which is what they like to do at the PMO. But anyway, second sentence. They focused on Canada-US relations, how to effectively strengthen Canada's energy independence, break down labour mobility and internal trade barriers, and on how to make Canada's carbon markets more effective. And then if you scroll down to the fourth from bottom paragraph, they talk about catalyzing, obviously,
Gotta have
to
that.
ensure that Canada can meet increasing demand for low carbon products and energy. Don't know what that is. I don't know where this demand is coming from. Does anybody know who's demanding low carbon products and energy? Anyway, whatever. They just assert that. And then it says they agreed that Canada's industrial carbon markets must be designed to promote investment, remain globally competitive, and strengthen Canada's energy security. Don't know how that's going to happen. Anyway, this is the important bit. To this end, First Ministers agreed to launch a new federal, provincial, territorial working group by the end of the summer. So an emergency then, if it's that quick, to explore different models of linking carbon markets across Canada. The Prime Minister committed to working with the premiers to update the carbon pricing benchmark, targeting finalization by the end of 2026. So if you look at the rest of this, they're talking about like 2027 and stuff like that for the actual important stuff that they talk about in here. But for this, it's the end of 2026, and it's all about trying to rationalize or universalize the carbon market. So you can't escape. It can't be a provincial thing ever again. It'll be everybody that has to pay the same carbon price. And that's smuggled into this meeting here, which is about, like, in the context of this meeting's about national survival, I thought. This is like, oh, the bloody Yankees are firing their muskets at us again. This is really scary, guys. Like, we've got to do something really out of the ordinary, and we've got to act urgently. And then they come out, and their priority apparently is carbon markets. What? What are these guys up to? that doesn't really make any sense.
Well, there's one winner in it. And there's only one winner, because the person paying the bill for these carbon markets, because the market itself, like the actual market had these carbon credits falling, and they were around $20. What Mark Carney is proposing is to put an artificial floor in it, supported by you. You're going to pay it. You're going to pay it.
And nationalize it.
Yeah, he's going to nationalize it, and you're going to pay it because it's going to be built in there. So to make sure Brookfield, who's invested, go read Brookfield's their investor deck. They basically financialized carbon credits. That's one of Mark Carney's big deals that he gave to the world. Mark Carney created a whole financialized system around carbon credits, which was basically dying on the vine. It's in the book. Dying on the vine. And so the big winner in this meeting isn't, the provincial trade and liquor net. It's Mark Carney and Brookfield. The big winner, because this is Mark Carney's baby, his literal baby, which is dying. Again, I don't want to preach too much on this, but Donald Trump won the election, basically said, drill, baby, drill. Carbon markets are done. Even the European Union is saying it. Like, it's killing our industries. We have to move away from it. The European Union and the United States says it's done. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but Carbon Capture USA is a company that moved to Alberta because they said it's not feasible in the United States because there's no credits. So they came to Canada for 75 cents on the dollar. So you're going to pay for them to invest, and you're going to pay for them when they collect money from you. This is a Mark Carney scheme that nobody else wants and nobody's talking about. I think this show has probably done more on this carbon capture than anybody. And it's one of the biggest taxation schemes. And Mark Carney even said it when he was interviewed in Europe. It's a taxation scheme. Here, he says it's an industry. What kind of industry is a taxation scheme? And now he's going to get all the provinces to agree, because it's like, oh, well, we can do this. Just sign this paper. Just, don't worry about that stuff. America is the biggest enemy. We got to get this done, though. It's a distraction. It's basically, we're fighting America, but I need this. Get this done so I can I have this? And they're that's the real priority. Even pushing back. Because
it's like they say, never waste a crisis.
Yeah.
Mark Carney is not wasting this crisis. He is seeing to his own priorities, which happen to be this financialization of all things and linking it to the CO2 content in the world's atmosphere. His favorite thing.
How much more can the Canadian taxpayer take before they push back? How much more can you take? Like, this is another taxation scheme, and you're already overtaxed. How much more can you take? And the oil field companies are saying, well, you know, whatever, as long as we're not paying for it. You know what I mean? Like the big corporations, it's like, as long as we're out of it, like, you know what I mean? Like, it sucks to be you. Because the population, if they don't push back, they're just going to get the bill.
But also, I have to, again, just go back and focus on something I mentioned when I read out that statement, where they talk about, it talks about how there's a massive amount of demand for low carbon energy. Again, I have to just say it. This is to me, this is like the central deceit in the whole thing, is trying to fool people into believing that there's natural organic demand out there, that the Japanese, the Koreans, the Indians, whoever you want to talk about as or the Americans, our customers for our products, that there's any demand whatsoever for this thing, for low carbon oil. Was it decarbonized oil? That's my favorite term of all. There is no demand for that, but they keep telling us that there is.
You'd think you'd hear about it, and you'd think that even Mark Carney admits it. Like, the price of carbon is actually here, way down here, you know, like $16, $20. But we're going to put in a 600% increase on that, so that we're going to put in that floor. And again, who is the biggest investor in these failing carbon markets? Who wins in that scenario? And the reporters are just like, okay, we'll write that down. There's massive demand for carbon. Nobody said, like, who wins in a supported floor that the government, the people, are going to pay for this supported floor in carbon credits? Who's the big winner? Oh, you don't know about that. You know, don't talk about that. Like, I mean, come on.
Just look at the wildfires and believe us when we tell you that this system, this taxation system, will stop the wildfires. We're not going to give you any evidence. It's just vibes. But this taxation scheme is going to make it less likely that there are massive wildfires in Ontario or the Fraser Valley or whatever it is next year, right? Trust me.
But here's the other side of that. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, as they used to say, U.S. gorging on Venezuelan oil as refineries seek insurance against Canadian wildfires. We've been highlighting this over and over and over again. Venezuelan oil amid threats to the country's supply from Canada due to wildfires, according to Bloomberg. Data shows the U.S. is importing more than 800,000 barrels of Venezuelan oil a day. A day. What happened to Ian? The highest level since 2017. As refineries look for insurance against potential supply disruptions triggered by wildfires in Canada. Ian's moving around. Ian's moving around.
What the hell's going on?
On his way up. There you go. He's in a better size now. But look at that. We've been talking about Venezuela. Global Traveler was on telling us too. Like they're going hard, putting oil back online. The big companies have sold assets in Canada to invest in Venezuela. Venezuela is a better, more secure market to invest in than Canada. Figure that out for a while. Just let that percolate in your head. And guess how much carbon markets they got going on in Venezuela? Julie, can you just do the research for us, Julie? How much carbon markets are going on in Venezuela?
Studies show that the industrial carbon price adds zero.
Zero, yeah, Julie got that. Julie knows. Julie knows everything. Zero carbon capture BS going on there in Venezuela. As Canada continues to, what's the word? Just abuse its population with taxation schemes that benefit the few at the expense of the many, because that's what that is. That's an abuse of the taxpayer. Absolute abuse of the taxpayer.
But Venezuela as well. And this is something that is like, that can keep you up late at night. But Venezuela is not a democracy, really, that we would recognize. It's not a liberal country. It's not, it's at the bottom of all those rankings of good stuff, the good stuff lists. And yet, somehow, the Venezuelan elite is able to recognize what's true of Venezuela and Canada, which is that the golden goose is the oil. The people's well-being depends upon the oil. You know, the financial and economic stability and prosperity of Venezuela and Canada depends on selling oil. Somehow their absolutely bizarre, screwed up system is capable of producing an elite that recognizes that. But Canada's isn't. You know, it's like, you don't even want to think about that sort of thing, do you?
I want to make a point here that maybe some people didn't get, because Ian made the point, and it's a very strong point. Mark Carney somebody said about ideology. Mark Carney, I don't believe, is stuck in ideology. Mark Carney, like Ian said, got in front of the zeitgeist and understood that this is, something, a religion that he could profit from. So he got in front of it and created these carbon credits, financialization industry. Mark Carney's about money. Like Mark Carney, the driving forces for Mark Carney are money. Look at the actions of Brookfield. Everywhere it goes. There's a whole bunch of human rights violations on Brookfield too. That company is about money. And carbon credits for him is a huge investment because he saw the world going that way. He bet big on it. Brookfield bet big on it. And those investments or those bets were losing. But Canada is here to make it whole for them. Canada is the savior for carbon credits. And it's not going to work out. He's going to take it. He's going to get their investment back. He's going to offload it to guess who? Guess who's going to buy a lot of these carbon credits? I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to say the Canadian pension plan is going to be a big investor in carbon credits because it's going to be huge. And guess who's going to get left holding the bag when this carbon credit market falls apart, when they find out nobody wants it? You. There's a song there, old country song, Holding the Bag. You always leave me holding the bag. That should be Mark Carney's theme song when he comes, his walk-on song. You always leave me holding the bag. You ever heard that country song, Holding the Bag?
Sounds like it could be any country song, so I believe you. I've probably heard it. I've heard a variation on it.
They have nothing going on if they're touting a $5.9 million deal. Listen to this here from, I'm not going to play it, but Tim, the First Minister's meeting in PEI, we had a new maritime electricity cooperation agreement, a $5.9 million investment to advance the PEI New Brunswick interconnection expansion project. Really? That's what you're touting? That's like Elon Musk getting up on stage and say they sold 3 cars in San Jose today. It's not something you talk about, right? $5.9 million.
But it's chump change that they're bragging about because they're in PEI.
And they got nothing else.
They're conscious that they want to keep that. They want to keep it red. They want to keep all the Maritimes red. So this is they're just hoping. They're hoping that people affected by this, so in those areas, think that $5.9 million is a lot of money in the infrastructure world.
How long do you think this hearing that's been put forward, this is from Blacklux Price, Carney faces a parliamentary hearing regarding the misrepresentations over toll sharing concessions on the Gordie Howe Bridge. The chair of the Commons Government Operations Committee yesterday summoned MPs to a special hearing to get to the bottom of the matter. How long do you think before this hearing gets shut down?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect it to see the light of day.
What's that?
I would not expect it to see the light of day. I'd say what's more likely to happen is there'll be a column or something in the Globe and Mail or a piece in the CBC which is framed around like, why are the weirdo conservatives still talking about this? Like, that was 2 months ago. Carney explained that it was something to do with his cowboy hat and he lost his bearings. I mean, Carney explained it. So why are the conservatives so obsessed with the Gordie Howe Bridge conspiracy theory?
We're going to show you later, not only the conservatives, but the unpatriotic conservatives.
Yeah. They believe in the Gordie Howe International Bridge conspiracy theory. There'll be a Wikipedia article about it soon.
Let's talk about it. Let's show you the Gordie Howes. They're all setting up there. All the servile media is there for the opening there. We can play that clip there. As they uninvited America from attending the opening ceremonies. Can you believe that? That's how juvenile, eh? You're uninvited. It's my party, and I cry if I wanna.
This is the scene about an hour before the opening of the Gordie Howe Bridge. On the Canadian side, the U.S. side, of course, not having any ceremony today, following the controversy surrounding tariffs and other issues. But the Canadians are going ahead, and obviously you can see a strong media presence here, both U.S. and Canadian media, having come over. This is the scene.
I would say it's so humiliating, this, isn't it? Like,
hey, considering
Carney is supposed to be Captain Canada, the great patriot. You said the P word. And he's supposed to be this really tough guy and wise guy. Like, this is profoundly humiliating, isn't it? This This is such a slap in the face. The bridge deal, I mean, the concession, and things like this just make it worse, really.
Is that our guest calling in early, Nick? Yeah. Do you want to let them know that maybe we'll start early? We'll let you give 5 minutes to get it sorted out here, and then we'll bring Ian Connerty in about 5 minutes here. The I did say if you put up that next graphic there, the Carney's credibility elixir, it will cost them. This bridge thing will cost them. Some people will say, okay, that's enough. That's absolutely enough. Because it crosses a line for somebody. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so many times that you can lie to your spouse, you know, like Bill Clinton. It wasn't really sex, you know. I didn't do anything, right? What do you consider sex? I don't know. Like, is that how Bill said it? It wasn't sex.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Very, very infamous, really, isn't it? But it's not. That's America. You know, America has a very live, vibrant, virile media, even more so then. That's not true in Canada. You don't get hounded for things like this. Just remember Justin Trudeau. Remember all the things that he did. Like the blackface is obviously the most colourful, if you forgive the pun, but it's the most obvious and gratuitous one. He just got away with it. Like that was gone as a story pretty rapidly. You know, it just disappeared. Whereas think about that with Americans. You know, in the American media, it just doesn't. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't trickle away like it does here.
Are you ready to bring him in, Nick? Yep. Okay, we're going to bring in Ian Connerty here. And Ian has a background as a journalist, environmental activist, backroom political advisor. And he was a music columnist for the Ottawa Journal, the Ottawa Citizen, CJOH TV, environmental activist as a national coordinator of 106 groups across Canada who were fighting against the expansion of nuclear power plants. And then he was appointed by Pierre Trudeau, appointed Ian as to his national policy committee. And then started a career in politics as senior advisor to the federal and provincial cabinet ministers and leader of the opposition in Ontario. And then he started back as a political columnist for the Toronto Star publication. And he also served as the chair of the Canadian News Hall of Fame and member of the Canadian Newspaper Awards Committee.
I don't know if he's here, but we'll see. He's in the green room.
Is he there? Or maybe he's not ready yet. Maybe he just got signed in and then he's not there. Well, we're going to keep going till he's there.
I'm here.
Oh, he's here. We can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know why the video's not up, but I'll try and see if it's at my end.
Well, I'll give you a couple seconds and then we'll maybe go back to our stories and then we'll give you a couple minutes after that to see if you can figure that out.
Yeah. It's not at your end, I guess.
No, not at our end there. I don't know, maybe Nick, should he go in and out?
Sure, yeah.
Maybe go out and come back in and see if that helps you there.
All right.
This is going to upset some of our commenters who hate dead air. Have you seen the dead air comments?
We can make some jokes, because you know what today is? Today is bad joke day. You got any bad jokes? We're going to try and get them out.
Don't have any bad jokes.
Yeah,
Not
we got
off the
them
top of
now.
my head.
We got him now. Nick says he's got him. So no bad jokes yet. There he is, hat and all. Welcome to the show, Mr. Connerty. We gave your introduction already. Can we hear you?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Can I hear you?
Yep. Welcome to the really big show.
Thank you. That was a very kind introduction.
We brought you on because we want to talk about the state of media. You've been in media for a long time, a little bit longer than myself, and a lot longer than that fine young-looking man over there on the other side of the screen there. He hails out of the UK. He's worked for the Daily Mail, worked for the UK government, and been working for us for a long time as well. So, and then we wanted to bring you on because you've been around the media game for a long time. A lot of people in Canada complaining about the state of media, including ourselves. And I think I sent you some stuff on Bill C-18. Bill C-18 continues to crush independent media here in Canada. And we've seen close to 100 outlets fail. I don't know. I said you were trying to update those numbers. So maybe I'll let you talk. And what do you have? What do you think of the state of media in Canada?
It's pretty desperate. Both broadcast and print media have lost 20,000 journalists in the last 20 years. And, what that does is it reduces the quality of what we're getting out of the newsroom. And a lot of the laid off journalists, some of whom I know, have turned to podcasts and Substack. And they still want to write. They still want to tell what's going on, what's really going on. And they're going to the new outlets. Some of them, like me, don't understand the intricacies of new media. And so they can't build an audience, but they are still some of the best journalists in Canada.
And then, you look at the ones that are left, and you look at CBC especially, who gets more and more money. And you saw during the election, which I'm sure it bothered you, that, like during an election cycle, you got one party saying we're going to defund you, and the other party says we're going to give you more money, and this is okay to be done in an election cycle. And the CBC gets more money, and then they give the executive team a raise right after they get this more money. And now Mark Miller's saying that they're going to make them in charge of misinformation in Canada, censoring other things. And they actually did during the election. They censored other platforms like ourselves and got to decide with Facebook on which outlets, other news outlets, competitive outlets, if they could censor their output.
Well, it's a political game, and it started by baby Trudeau, and it's been continued by Carney. To give $700 million a year to the Main Street media. And I just checked the criteria this morning, and it pretty much excludes alternative media like you and me. And that's on purpose. It's a political game. I checked also how many Canadians and U.S. people have switched to getting most of their news from digital. In the U.S., it was 90% and up in all age groups. But in Canada, we're lagging behind. Only 34% of young people 18 to 30 are getting their news from digital. And with the senior citizens, 75% are still getting all their news from the old media. CBC, etc. And that explains why, politically, that Carney is supporting them.
Yeah, he said CBC, and I sent you the clip, CBC is the most important institution in Canada. They've become basically the mouthpiece or the propaganda arm for the Liberal Party. And we see some of that. Like there's so many questions that go unanswered. And some of the biggest issues that Ian and I have, we're actually an accredited organization. We fought for that. We fought for that as they took away our ability to get revenue. They took away our audience. We had 80% of our traffic was gone when they took Meta away from us. 80%. Can you imagine that? 80% of our traffic gone as they put their knee on our throat and said, we're here to help. Don't worry, we're here to help. And we've been begging for them to...
We're from the government and we're here to help you.
And we've been begging for them to remove that. And we actually asked Mark Carney when he was in West Kelowna. And he said, you're not going to like the answer. We're going to give more money to the CBC because CBC is going to do local reporting. Do you see it?
No. In fact, with the consolidation over the last 20 years, when we've lost 470 weekly newspapers and 36 dailies, what's happened is that a hedge fund in New Jersey has taken over Canadian media. They now own 130 newspapers across Canada. 90 of them are weeklies, and they include the Sun Chain, which used to be independent, the National Post, and the two newspapers in Vancouver, for example, and the two in Ottawa, and it's the same across the country. So I have to ask the question: why is a New Jersey hedge fund owning all of these newspapers in Canada, and they're losing $270 million over the last 5 years? Why are they prepared to lose that money? Well, to me, the answer is that all editorial for these 130 newspapers are now curated out of a strip mall in Hamilton, Ontario, where all national and international news is dictated. Only a few newspapers across Canada still have people covering local news. They're in the main centers of Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, Edmonton, Calgary. But the rest are not even getting the local news.
You're an old school journalist. You even got the hat. I like the hat. And obviously, and I'm going to turn you over to Ian here in a second. What is your just thought of the media landscape? Does it obviously? I mean, is it disappointing? Is it frustrating? And what can Canadians do about it?
I'll give you an example. A good friend of mine was the Globe and Mail bureau chief in Beijing, Ottawa, Washington, and Queen's Park, Toronto. And we still chat about once a month. We have lunch, and he said that he doesn't even subscribe to the Globe and Mail anymore. And his view is that journalism schools are turning out incompetent people who read government press releases. And he said in the old days, you go behind. You go and talk to the people who are affected by legislation or potential legislation, and that's where you get the real story. That's not happening anymore. What can we do about it? I think because of the subsidies from the federal government to these Main Street media folks, we have to continue to build independent media like yours. And then we have, myself and a partner here in Toronto have also started a podcast called Behind the Headlines Canada. We're only in 39 episodes. You guys are ahead of us. You're now into 400 episodes.
Yeah, you can put that. We'll put that link.
And
in
we're
there
having a hell of a time.
You can throw it in the comments.
Yeah, we're having a hell of a time.
What's that?
I was going to say we're having a hell of a time dealing with YouTube, and for some reason we're getting coverage from Facebook now, and that's just happened recently.
We had an audience of 200,000 on Facebook. We had an audience of 200,000, and overnight, gone. And then Ian and I ramped this show up pretty good.
Wow.
And we got over 3.5 million views one month, and then all of a sudden somebody shut the tap down too, as they tighten the screws on this too, as the Mark Millers, the social cohesion guys. But if your partner's watching, or if you're watching, there's lots of comments. There's a lot of people on right now. You can put the link into your podcast as well, and that'd be great. But I'll let Ian ask you some questions here as this is going on.
I wanna tap into your experience, if you don't mind. I'm interested in the contrast between the modern media in Canada and the media that you remember when it was more functional and better. And I'd love it if you could highlight that contrast by maybe, could you tell me how the old media would have treated specifically the Carney government differently from the new media? What would they have done in terms of scrutinizing and reporting on Mr. Carney and his government?
Well, I as a young man going to university, I was a political aide to a member of parliament in Ottawa. And I remember hanging out quite easily with some of the giants of journalism, like Charles, who now has a media studio at Parliament Hill named after him. He was the head of Southern News, and we had a few chats, and he taught me a lot about journalism, and I wasn't really into it then, but I've used that experience. And Bain at the Globe and Mail was the counterpart, and these guys produced hard-hitting news about Parliament Hill. And the relationship they had with the politicians then, including Papa Trudeau, was very clear. The politicians in Ottawa did not mind being beaten up occasionally by good, hard-hitting journalists. But today, there's no giants of journalism left. They've all been laid off. As I said earlier, today just don't bother to ask the questions.
Yeah,
there's so many questions too.
I think that's particularly poignant, isn't it? Today we're talking about the bridge. So many questions that have not been asked that seem so obvious. I mean, that's kind of what our show is. We just kind of review what the Prime Minister has said and highlight what hasn't been noticed. Like even yesterday, we had a silly little chat, not a particularly deep point, but talking about how Mark Carney said, he was talking about the era of Confederation. And one of the things he said was occurring then was the threat of American invasion. And then he looked up and smirked and said, plus ça change. So in other words, saying we're under threat of American invasion still. Is that not, that's quite a provocative thing to say. I mean, given everything that Trump has said, to resurrect that and talk about that again. And yet it just kind of disappears, like a lot of these things they just dribble away. And this possibility that he has misled Canadians, which the evidence seems to suggest, it just trickles away. There's no consistency.
Yeah, the Carney cult BS machine seems to have taken Canadian politics to another level of misleading. Baby Trudeau was an idiot, and so he didn't master media whatsoever. He just pretty socks and all that nonsense. But what Carney has done, and he's a cult leader, and everything he says can be contradicted and he does it within a couple of days. He'll say the opposite, and there is no coverage of that until recently. Some of the main media, like CTV's political panel, have started to say he's a liar. Well, where have you been for 14 months? He's been lying ever since he got elected and getting away with it. Now, that's not new in politics. I've worked in politics, and I was a spin doctor for politicians who got in trouble. And what do you say tomorrow? And so I know how it works. But it worked occasionally back in the day in politics. Today, it works for Carney non-stop because nobody is calling him out on his lies.
And do you think this is something that I talk about a lot, given that I sort of came to Canada from England? But do you think Canada's in a unique position here? Like, because you worked in England, didn't you? If I'm not wrong, do you see the British scene or the American scene? Are they in the same sort of situation?
I was in London for 2 years when we bought 2 local magazines, City Planning and Westminster Planning. Are the 2 bureaus in London that run London. And so I got off the plane, and the first thing I did is I bought the 10 local newspapers. And to me, it was shocking because one of the tabloids had the front page. It said, "We didn't attend that sex party." And that was the wife of a sitting cabinet minister. So I turned the page, and yeah, we would never go to the East End to a sex party. We'd only go to sex parties downtown. And that that coverage never happened in Canada. Um, when as I go back to when I was first on Parliament Hill, I remember going to the press gallery. I was liaising with the media then, and the press gallery had a bar up in Ottawa. I don't know if it's still there. And Margaret Trudeau walked in kissing face with her new boyfriend from the CBC. And I'm sitting at a table with some grizzled veterans. I said, "Are you guys going to cover this?" "Oh, no. We have a rule. We keep out of the private lives of Canadian politicians." Well, that changed under Mulroney because some young reporter who was on the plane, Mulroney, when he ran for election and won, said about McKisassy, as we call him, Mackesy, a minister in Papa Trudeau's government, that there's no whore like an old whore, and he was referring to this guy. Well, sure enough, this young reporter ran it and got front page coverage, and that changed Canadian media a little bit to the British one, going after the personal ethics of politicians. However, nothing like what I saw in Great Britain.
Yeah, that was quite amusing, I have to say. I'm just going to ask you one more, a general question, then pass you back to Jim. You've talked a lot about Papa Trudeau, as you refer to him. So, but you worked for him, is that right? You must have had quite a few interactions with him. You must have known him.
Yes, and I more with his chief of staff at the time, Martin O'Connell, who then quit that job to join the cabinet. But just as Trudeau, Papa Trudeau, was one of the last, in my view, honest politicians when it came to the political process. Not so much, he didn't understand the economy, and he's totally screwed up the economy, just like his son, baby Trudeau. I enjoyed being on his policy committee. For example, as an environmentalist, I raised concerns about nuclear power plants expanding, and Papa Trudeau heard that and stopped funding the federal agency that was promoting CANDU reactors. That's since changed under Carney, who wants to put them in everybody's backyard now, the little ones. And his staff phoned me up and he said, we don't like what's going on in the Liberal Party. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you go to these conventions and it's all a bunch of gray-haired men. And he said, you're a young Liberal, maybe you can help us. I said, yeah, I got some ideas. So I said, what you need is constitutional amendments. And I was friends with the head of the women's group of the party, who was president of York University, and friends with the guy who was head of the youth group. And I phoned them up and I said, look, there's a convention coming up in Halifax. And what happens when they have these conventions away from Toronto, Montreal, is the turnout's lower. And I said, look, if you can get the women and youth to show up in numbers, then we can maybe get through some constitutional amendments. And we did. At that time, all 18 delegates from each riding were open season, and the gray-haired men won most of the seats. We changed the Constitution so that 4 of them had to be women and 4 of them had to be youth. And Papa Trudeau was quite delighted by that because it was changing the Liberal Party back then. The other thing that I really liked about him was he did not appoint candidates. And for example, in the 72 election, his Minister of Veterans Affairs was defeated in Winnipeg at his own renomination. And Trudeau was nonplussed. So, in fact, he appointed the backbencher I was working for as the acting minister. And he said, you can't win renomination from your own people. You don't deserve to be in Parliament. Well, that started to change under Chrétien. The party allowed him to nominate 10 people. And then baby Trudeau, it was unlimited. So he appointed all of his buddies from McGill and put them in cabinet. That's a pretty small gene pool. Carney has done even worse. There's 6 spots up, and he has nominated candidates in 5 of them who are going to be ass kissers to Carney. And in the other one in Beaches, where there was a controversy, I talked to one of the guys who represented that riding provincially for 2 terms, who I thought was a natural successor to Nate Erskine Smith when he quit. And he told me that it took until 2 days after selling new memberships closed until he was green lighted by the party to be a candidate. And so then he found out that the candidate that Carney wanted had already sold 5,000 memberships. And John Tory Jr. Had switched over to the Liberals to run in that nomination. He withdrew right away. So the BS of political machinations controlling who gets the nomination is just disgusting. I remember when I was a riding president, we had Gene Whalen, a guy that you would know in Western Canada, with his green hat. He was Minister of Agriculture, and he was fairly well liked amongst farmers across the country. He told me that he could never win a nomination today because of this BS. So who are we getting in Parliament? We're getting cardboard cutouts of maybe from Hollywood. They look good and certainly don't raise any questions about the government. When I was there, it was very different. I would run in the halls. I'd run into canisters just as a researcher. And I remember Jerry Regan from Halifax was appointed the super minister of 5 different ministries reporting to him. And I said, after a year, I said, how's that going? He says, it's complete BS. It's paralysis by analysis. Before this, I was able to get things through cabinet. Now it has to go through the 5 ministries. They sit around and talk forever. And the history of the last 2 years of Papa Trudeau is just that. Nothing was done. Nothing was accomplished because Papa Trudeau created these super ministries. They're gone now.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in here. I think what Trudeau did accomplish, though, is he's destroyed our economy. We've shown that over and over and over again. The charts, we got 10 million Canadians now with food insecurity. Yep. I mean, it's the absolute destruction of this economy. I do want to ask you a question on the CBC, though. And I watched CBC when I was younger, and CBC was the only channel we got, so we didn't have much choice. When did CBC lose its way? When did they go off track? Is it linked to Trudeau, or when did they just completely sell their souls out?
Yeah, I think it really happened big time under baby Trudeau, and that's when he also started giving them $700 million a year to subsidize main media. And the reason they did that was that. Yeah, and all the other outlets, and they kept increasing the budget of CBC. It's now $1.4 billion.
1.6 this year.
Versus
1.6 because they got that extra 150.
Okay. In addition to the 700 million that goes to the rest of them, like the Toronto Star and the Post Media Group that I talked about earlier, and I'm just mad about Post Media. these guys from New Jersey get $20 million a year from the federal government to do what? To curate our national and international news.
How much?
Just
how much? How much of the election, the credit for the election, goes to the government-funded media? How much do you think they played a role in vaulting Mark Carney over? Like, it looked like the Conservatives are going to win a landslide. All of a sudden, Mark Carney comes in there, the media pitches them hard, and all of a sudden, it's a completely different picture. How much of a role do you think they played in that?
A huge role. As I said earlier, Canadian senior citizens still rely on mass media and mainly CBC for their daily news. And that's where the elbows up crowd emerged, because it was a huge political bloc that Carney could control through the CBC plus these other subsidies. And it was a generational fight in the last federal election. Looking at the polling results, young people on the whole voted very strongly for the Conservatives, and old senior citizens voted very strongly for Carney. And in swing seats, and I know that my past experience in politics, each party concentrates not on the seats they hold and they have huge majorities, but they concentrate on 30 to 40 swing seats that really elect our governments in Canada. And so Carney was able to pump extra money into the media in those swing seats, and they all ran favorable stories about how great Carney was, the banker, and you can trust him, and he was such a contrast with Baby Trudeau that people felt comfortable with them. Enough people in those swing ridings to barely elect him.
You travel in the circles of like a generation that voted like in large numbers for that. So you must talk to a lot of journalists and a lot of people in that group. How are they still enamored by somebody that's been exposed many times in a nation that, there's so many things that are wrong, right? 10 million, like the one that Ian and I talk about, 10 million Canadians now facing food insecurity, an economy on the brink, where, we're in a recession, all these things. How do they still excuse that? And how are they still enamored? Like, the polls still show, and we talked about it yesterday, the polls still show Carney with a really big lead.
Well, the lead is actually dropping. It dropped from 15 points to 8 points. Now it's down to 4. So it's almost a horse race now. But the problem with the Conservatives is that their leader is hated by women. The huge gap in polling is 10% of women won't even consider Pierre, and they voted for grandfather or father figure Carney instead of a guy they wouldn't go on a date with or have a beer with. And that can't be fixed. I talked recently to somebody who's known Pierre for 30 years, a Tory organizer. She said, yeah, well, he was always like that, even as a young man. And, I don't see it when I watch him. I think he's a very aggressive leader of the opposition. But apparently every young woman, and even middle-aged women that I talked to who voted Liberal, say they did it because they don't trust him. I don't know what the hell it is, but it's there.
So do you think, this will be my last question because we got to get back to our news.
Yep.
I'll give you two last questions then, and one of those is, do you think Pierre will be, when the election comes around again, do you think Pierre Poilievre will be the candidate for the Conservative Party?
He will not. And I like him. I like his approach, but his own party is turning against him. I recently talked to O'Toole, who's the previous leader, and he said that, I asked him what's going on in caucus. He says there's at least another 30 members of caucus that do not like Pierre's leadership. And I said, well, why? They don't like Pierre? He says, no, because when he was way ahead in the polls, they were all picking out the curtains for their cabinet ministers' offices in Ottawa. And then with the change of leadership by the Liberals, that polling result against Baby Trudeau disappeared. And so they're all mad as hell that they're still opposition members when they wanted something else. And that explains some of the people that have crossed over too. It's not so much, according to O'Toole, that they don't like Pierre. It's just that he screwed up in the general election.
Well, I'm going to put your link in here to
and I think what's going to happen. There will be a caucus revolt, just like in the UK, and still in Canada, the Conservative Party can still vote out a leader, and like they can in Britain. That's going to happen in the next couple of years. Now, who will replace them? I don't know. There are several names that are openly running for his job, including Premier Ford of Ontario, who's a complete idiot. But
we call him Flip-Flop Ford. Flip-Flop Ford. But
he is.
We're going to put your link into your podcast here. I'm going to put it in there right now. So there it is. And it was great having you on. And I do want to ask you one last question, though. We just got to get back to our news. And we'd love to have you on again. And you and I are going to chat, I think, at noon Pacific Standard Time again, off the air. I put the link in there. So you go there and check out that podcast. Is there a message you have for Canadians when they're trying to find truth in media? Because it seems like you go to the mainstream media and it's just you're fed a narrative. What's your message to Canadians right now?
Go to alternative media. Your broadcast, and I follow it regularly, and there are several like that now emerging across Canada. And you know names as well as I do. Lane in Winnipeg, I think she's doing a great job too, and there are others, Jasmine, and there are other people. She
comes on
like
here
that.
every now and then in the comments, and it's just an uproar because she's very popular. Like she'll show up in the comments, and the crowd goes wild, right? So,
well, I think she's terrific, and you guys are pretty good too.
There you go. We're not as good
that's
looking.
The
though.
only place. Well, your young fella from England is, the long hair makes him look young and virile. So
yeah, there's a lot of talk about the hair for sure. But and it is the independence, and we say it on the show all the time. It is the independence that is going to change us. The Sam Coopers out there that are actually putting their lives on the line. Like even the food professor. Some of the stuff we've had him on, some of the stuff that he's broken goes against the narrative, right? And truth in media, and I mean, truth is what, like the media used to seek out. And I don't know how they ignore the story. Like they had all the premiers there, the prime minister, and not one person talked about that Department of Agriculture story where it said it's critical. 10 million Canadians face food insecurity. You would think that's the story of the year. Nobody. Nothing. Nothing.
Nothing. And there's a lot of coverage of that on the alternative media. And the good news is that viewership is growing for everybody. Wow. Your viewership is up, Lane's viewership is up. And Cooper used to be with the Global News, and they didn't like his honest reporting. He's an old-fashioned journalist. He digs, and he's got good sources. And, I watch him as well. And other people are starting to watch him. Lily at the Toronto Sun interviews him often. And, that's a switch for the Toronto Sun.
Brian Lilly,
So
we're going to have to get Brian on, actually.
Yeah,
but I do thank you, Ian. We've got a lot of load left to get through. We've got a lot of our news we still got to get through. I love the hat, though. Absolutely, the hat's stunning. I used to wear the hat, and people said I got to take the hat off. But that's a cool hat, though, right? That's an absolutely
I used to have
amazing
press up here. I took the press sticker out.
It's like Superman, right? Superman used to wear that hat with the press card on the top, right? Old school.
We are the new Superman of media.
That's right. Well, the name of our show is a nod to none other than Ed Sullivan. When stuff was more honest, right? The really big show.
Really big shoe.
That's right, the really big shoe. With that said, Ian, we really appreciate your time. And again, we put your link in there and people to go over there and check it out. I mean, we want to support as much independent media as we can because we believe independent media is the future for Canada. And we need to build kind of like an ecosystem where we support each other. Because you can see in mainstream media, they just repeat the story. That one story just goes across and it's just like a machine, right? And just like a machine, they drill it into your head. But again, thank you for coming on.
That's out of the strip mall in Hamilton.
There you go. All right, cheers. We'll chat again.
Cheers.
We'll chat at noon, actually. Cheers.
Cheerio.
See you later.
We got quite a bit to go through, so we're going to step on the gas, eh? Step on the gas. We're back to the Tiff Macklin. Tiff Macklin. Tiff Macklin there, cited as a lawbreaker. The nation's Labour Federation yesterday shamed Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklin for unlawful practices. Macklin censored for hiring replacement workers in a 5-week dispute with striking security guards. Wow. 49 security guards with Local 71250 and the Public Service Alliance Canada launched a legal strike on June 23rd. The bank has since twice been cited by the Canadian Industrial Relations Board for hiring replacement Pinkerton and Garda Canada security workers. Tiffy. Come on, Tiff.
I just have to interject and say how amazing it is that Pinkerton is still going.
Yeah, Pinkerton, that's the old movies.
Yeah, and the old detective stories.
Yeah.
Founded in 1850. Amazing.
Look at this one here. Blow your mind, because like Mark Carney stood up there, he did the carbon capture pitch with the wildfire, right? He tied the two together. And at the same time, if you put up the next slide there, Nick, the same time, the Carney government cut nearly half the jobs at the Nerve Center for managing wildfires. At the same time, hey? You got this excuse, carbon capture, we need that. A lot of fires aren't even being actioned.
This will be all over the news, won't it?
Well, it's like front page.
CTV's front page.
It's everywhere.
Somehow I'm not seeing it.
I do want to say, I did that interview with Murray Wilson, the forester, and it explains a lot of this stuff too that goes against the narrative of climate change. And I'll put the link in there, and I ask you to go watch this, and I ask you over and over to go watch it. But I ask you to go over to that video as well, and please subscribe. They only got the one video, but to get their subscriber count out so they can actually get monetized, they need to get to 1,000. So if you could help us out there, you just jump over there for a second, click that link, jump over there, hit the subscribe button so they can get monetized. Because I mean, they're banging on the door 700,000, but all of that is not monetized because unless you get to 1,000 on YouTube, you get no monetization because they want to make a second movie. So give them a hand. There's so much good information in that video, plus the interview I did with Murray Wilson. And I ask you to go watch that. They are sponsoring the show right now as well. So out of respect for the show, if you could go check that out, we'd be very thankful. This chart here from our friend Martin Pelche. Look at this. Look at this. Can you make that bigger, Nick? Like the next one there. Go to the next slide. This is the money supply. This is the money supply. And guess who's leading the money supply? Want to take a stab at it?
We're rich.
Canada. The money supply, and the Americans there in second place, but look at that. The difference between the American money supply and the Canadian money supply is massive. You can't compare the two and just like, oh, well, whatever, America's there too. Nope. Canada is not a reserve currency. The United States of America is a reserve currency. So they can play with their dollar a lot more because they can export their inflation. Canada cannot. Canada's currency is at massive risk. Every time Mark Carney does something to spend, look at the money spending. Look at the money spending. If we don't manage our currency will get managed by the world. It's in falling against other currencies. This is a massive problem. And you know who's going to pay the price for this? You. Because right now, this carbon capture thing, it's just more government spending because the people are going to pay for the carbon capture. Money's going to flow out of the tax coffers, into Brookfield. They get the money and then go invest it in the United States. Bully for them. you are going to get stuck with the bill. You're literally going to get stuck with the bill. And if our currency drops, prices at the grocery store are going to like skyrocket, like literally skyrocket. Everything is going to go up. And you're going to get stuck with the bill. And then Canada's going to go on sale. Then other countries are going to come in here, like China, and they're going to buy your airports up. Mark Carney is holding that investor conference in September. And Canada is like, it's 70% off right now. People are just like, wow, look at that, eh, Canada? Because there's good assets here. Do you know what I mean? Resources. You can buy yourself a pipeline, cheap. You can buy yourself a mine, cheap. You can buy all these things, cheap. As Canada gets, the currency is a big thing, though. This is absolutely, this chart should scare the heck out of you. Because where's the fiscal responsibility in Canada? Can anybody show it to me? Francois Philippe Champagne, Francois, I talked to my mother. She said everything going to be okay. Is it? Is it?
The standout there for me, I know we're talking about Canada, but I think you've covered Canada. But the real standout to me is Japan. Look at that. Look at the COVID. Everyone else, just goes like skyscraper, shoots up. Japan's like, a little bit. But then if somebody's saying like, I don't understand this. Sorry, I can't find who it was, but somebody said, I don't understand this currency malarkey. Just look at, go on, there are loads of websites where you can do this, but look at like trading economics. That's it's probably on Wikipedia, but trading economics is a big one that most people are aware of. Go there and look at Japan's inflation rate in recent years, including during COVID and after COVID. According to Trading Economics, it peaked at 4.3%. That's direct. You don't have to like learn about monetary theory or whatever, really, but trust me, bro, that's directly connected to that chart there. And our high inflation is also connected to that.
Inflation is really caused by government spending. Because think about it as a credit card. That's Canada's credit card right there. That's Canada's credit card. And somebody holds that debt. Somebody holds that debt. And at some point, somebody says, you get no more. Like the United States is a different beast. Like, you can't compare the two. The United States is a different beast. Like, everybody in the world collectively holds the American dollar. And it's the trading system. It's a completely different beast. It's the empire's money, the Roman money. It's the empire's money. Canada isn't the empire's money. It's a far, it's an outpost somewhere that has, like trading wooden nickels. So we have to have respect. We have to have something there that backs the money. We have how much gold do we have, Julie? Julie, how much gold does Canada have that backs the currency? Julie, come on, Julie. How much gold does Canada have, Julie? Julie, show us how much Canada. Oh, that's right, Julie. Julie nailed it again. God, she's good at. Somebody said I need helium when I do Francois Philippe Champagne. Ian can get away with it all together, right?
I need to just do it on the regular.
Can you explain in Francois' words why this chart is good for Canada?
This means more dollars on the street. That means more dollars in your pocket. We all richer. We all have more dollars, etc. Really,
until we don't
go much beyond that, does it?
And then the chainsaw guy, Javier Milei, has turned Argentina around with austerity. Look at this chart. It's absolutely crazy. With austerity and cutting government spending, he's taken the poverty rate down. 10%. Real GDP is up 5.7%. Inflation is down. Government debt down. Real rent prices down. You just flip that chart on its head, and that's Canada. Poverty rate up. 10 million Canadians now. Food insecurity. Real GDP down. Inflation up. Canada has the second highest, or the first, the most expensive food inflation in the world. Government debt skyrocketing. It's basically everything that's there, opposite. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. I'm going to play this because I interviewed Ron Kubek, the winery guy. I think it's Lightning Rock. I interviewed him, wasn't it like a few months ago? We had the same interview. CBC interviewed him, and he said, we'll listen to a clip of it.
And as a winery owner, it's disappointing that, it costs more money to send my money across Canada. I mean, even with the dirty secret is with the 50% tariff, it's still cheaper to sell it to the U.S.
I mean, I think you're echoing the frustration of so many business owners across the country. Ron, I want to ask you, because in many ways, your perspective and your point of view is what really matters given the kind of impact that you guys feel with these tariffs. So if you were to be writing this deal, what would be in it?
I'd immediately allow Canadian-made wine, Canadian-made beer, Canadian-made spirits, cider, to be treated as domestic product with no provincial markup. Allow us to collect the HST or the PST. In BC, the PST is 42% higher than the regular PST. But allow us to collect that and stop collecting the 71% to 300% markups that all these provincial liquor boards doing. We could have a great Canadian market. The dirty secret is another dirty secret, lots of them, is that Canada only drinks 12% of its own wine. Countries like France, 75%, Australia, 90%. We truly have a chance. This is a chance of a lifetime to finally fix something that's been broken for decades. And I just ask the premiers to get serious about it and talk to real people who are affected, not bureaucrats trying to protect provincial monopolies.
Well, that's it exactly.
That's good. Even she tried to steer it back to tariffs. Literally, like when I interviewed him too, even with the tariffs, he makes more money selling it in the U.S. than he does in Canada. Can you imagine that? And she's like, oh, what about the tariff? Trump bad guy. Not Canada bad guy, right? Like, you can go watch the interview I did with him as well. It's ridiculous that this thing is going on. And then, so 9 provinces have signed on to reduce this stuff. Will it actually happen? Because this has been, Tracy Gray was pushing this, when she was an MP, to get interprovincial trade barriers torn down.
Dan Albus, I believe, as well.
Dan Albus, yeah. And it just seems to not get anywhere. In Quebec, Quebec, they like to drink wine in Quebec. But no, not so much, eh? Not so much.
It's because they want their Bordeaux. They want the real deal.
And I don't understand. I'm not even understanding why I'm playing this again. I probably should get myself a punch in the face for this, right? But like the old Monty Python skit.
Look away now.
What's that?
Just warn people to look away now.
Look away, go like, la, 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 la. Listen to this here.
Regular Canadians completely setting aside decisions by the government. Regular Canadians have been voting with their wallets and with their feet. Regular Canadians have been boycotting U.S. products. Regular Canadians have been choosing not to go on holiday in the United States. Both of those things have been causing real pain to, for example, U.S. winemakers, to U.S. cities and towns that are used to a lot of Canadian tourists. But I would say Canadians, regular Canadians, still have a lot of sympathy for regular Americans. Regular Canadians understand that not all Americans voted for this administration. We look at things like the people of Minneapolis and we admire their courage. But my fear is, if this carries on, if regular Americans don't speak out and say this treatment of our neighbor and ally is unacceptable, then maybe the Canadian feeling will spread from antipathy towards the White House to a broader antipathy. I think that would be a real
regular Canadians. So she's outside of that regular Canadians because she's not spending any money in Canada, is she? Is she?
She's just a regular Joe. That's what she's telling you.
Mark Carney is not spending his money
Canadians.
In Canada. The company Brookfield is doing tons of work in the United States of America. Tons of work. Just announced more contracts. Just use Canadian tax dollars, actually, CPP money, to actually go buy $5.2 billion worth of warehousing in the United States of America. So this is what I mean. These people tell you nothing but B.S. Do you know what I mean? This is just nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And they're using their media outlets to get this message across and prey on people that don't engage their brains.
I mean, credit to her for a vocal range, though.
Yeah.
She's like the Paul McCartney the next Paul McCartney. The way she can hit those highs and then right down to a very deep low.
I like
And then
when she
she's
gets
up
that
again.
screechy voice in there, which
She needs somebody to like do harmonies with her, you know? She's just out there on her own. She doesn't have a John Lennon.
Holly Doan and Blacklock, so not letting go of this story, not letting go. The Department of Crown Indigenous Relationships waived a requirement that the Kamloops First Nation account for the money, what became the $12 million. Imagine that. You don't have to worry about it, because they're supposed to have an accounting of the money, right? The $12 million for, digging up the remains at the Indian residential school. But they said, yeah, you don't need to do that. Just don't worry about it. It's all good.
I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like, this is your money. Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied about this? Just because you've been emotionally blackmailed into thinking that, this money was what? I don't know. What was this money? Was it compensation or something like that? I mean, what do people think this is for? If it's not to dig, I mean, that's literally the name of the fund, isn't it? Dig up the sites fund, or whatever it is. Like, people okay with that?
And here's another one. No time for postal hearings. There's no time for any fulsome review of the future of Canada Post. And that's what Cabinet has told MPs in reply to a request for public hearings. Again, a boondoggle where they're still taking $31 million in bonuses. $31 million in bonuses while they're $1 billion plus in the hole. Just taking your money. We've sent requests for information. They send us back a boilerplate. We said, not good enough. Answer these questions. And then the crickets showed up. Nothing. Again, they have no respect for the taxpayer. And, like Aaron Pete, who's done some good interviews recently, Mike Farnworth, NDP there, says every time Trump turns up the pressure, the BC Conservatives want to back down. And he's saying, they've been accusing the Conservatives of being traitors and a whole bunch of things. He wrote that next tweet there. And just David Eby's style. And, I've never seen such atrocious behavior of another party. Just because you disagree with the NDP doesn't make you a treasonist to Canada. We're going to show you some other stuff here in a bit there. I do want to play. Here's another Elon Musk one. This one's funny as heck.
Environment, particularly on social media, fostered by the kinds of things you are pushing on X, actually helps this, makes it worse.
I don't think so. I think you're the problem, the media. And speaking of loathing, you're loathed far more than I am, and you don't seem to even realize that.
I think very few people know who I am relative to you, so I don't think I play in the same game.
The media collectively. So, I mean, you're hated. Do you even know that? You probably don't.
I like to think that I'm aware of my own personal shortcomings and the Economist shortcomings and our worldview shortcomings. Yeah. But what we stand for, as you know, is liberal values, traditional, classical liberal values, where we worry about concentrations of power and we believe in the individual and the dignity of the individual and individual freedom.
Right. I agree with that.
Firmly believe that. And I have long thought that you were a classical liberal. But when I read what you post, classical liberal, J.S. Mill, limited government, individual freedom.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But when I read what you post on your feed, I sometimes wonder whether you really do believe in that.
I literally said, look, I believe in safe cities, secure borders, and sensible spending.
By the way, The Economist is not classically liberal at all. I can't believe she invoked the name of John Stuart Mill. John Stuart Mill would look at The Economist, like an edition of The Economist on any given day, and say, who the hell are these extremist freaks? Are these is this some freakish cult sect from the Civil War? Like the Levelers or something? Like, who the hell are these people? The Economist is completely all in on progressivism. You know, just look at how they reported on, well, any of the major sort of culture wars events. Go and look at their reporting on the George Floyd affair and the aftermath. Just have a look. Like, The Economist is not classically liberal at all. That's absurd that she would say that.
One more from Elon.
You support not just the populist right, but the far right. In fact, very fringe parties in some countries.
No, I support the normal people.
That's good. We already
Okay.
played that one at the top of the hour, and then we got one more here at the end. Here.
The point is not that the question is not is America perfect? The question is, does Europe have a serious and growing problem?
The question
Absolutely,
is
it has a
which
serious
is
and
more
growing
dangerous.
problem.
That's where we started this.
Europe has a serious and growing problem. I'm not going to say that the United States has no problems. Of course it does, but you know, we should all try to address these issues.
We can agree on that. We should all try to address the problems. My point was simply that I think you exaggerate the scale of Europe's problem, and that
I think people are asleep at the switch and do not realize the magnitude of the issue.
I also think that your interventions, however well-intentioned they may be, risk making Europe's problem a lot worse.
How?
Because you are putting your support behind people who are proto-authoritarians, who are not trying simply to, you know, make sure there is better integration of Muslims or to secure the borders, but who have very clear fascist tendencies, and you will cause huge divisions within Europe.
I think what you're saying is total fiction, and really, I'm simply saying that that Europe has to have secure borders.
Okay, on that we agree
and should
on.
not let in vast numbers of people with views that are antithetical to the accepted views in Europe, and where there will not be some level of safe cultural integration. This is simply common sense.
If all you are saying is Europe should have secure borders, I completely agree with you. Then I have misunderstood what your interventions have been on social media, because that is not what the view I have, not what I would conclude having seen what the people you are supporting and the things you're doing. But if that's your goal, I share your goal that Europe should have secure borders.
Yes.
I think that's perfectly agreeable. That gets me to a question.
And let me explain what the fundamental forcing function here is for why the borders are not secure, which is when you have a welfare state that provides substantial benefits to anyone who comes there, you create a very powerful economic forcing function for anyone who is below that standard of living to come to Europe. It is an obvious, powerful driving force, and people will come there if their standard of living is, from what they get in Europe, is above where they are elsewhere in the world. It's very basic.
Does that sound familiar? Does it sound familiar? You know any other countries doing that? Where they welcome people and pay all their stuff for years? And then companies like Rogers like reap the rewards? Know anybody like that?
Sure do.
She was quick with the word fascist, though. She chucked that out there pretty quick, right? Pulled that right out of her pocket.
That's what I was going to say. Like, rewind if you didn't see where she talks about how The Economist and herself are classical liberals and believe in the writings of John Stuart Mill. I mean, read On Liberty. Do it yourself. It's not a particularly long book. That's John Stuart Mill's most famous book. Probably the only book she's ever read by John Stuart Mill. Have a read of that and tell me if you think that she represents his views. Talking about proto-authoritarian. So they're not authoritarian yet, but they're sort of incipient authoritarians. And she's talking about Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe. What? Rupert Lowe's an authoritarian? Rupert Lowe is more like a classical liberal. You know what I mean? Like, Rupert Lowe he's just like an old sort of Englishman from the countryside kind of thing. You know, that's what Rupert Lowe is. But she keeps bringing up his name. I can only assume that she's thinking about him when she says the word fascist? Rupert bloody Law. Rupert Law, who would be pretty sort of out there, far left, compared to like her granddad's generation, for example. I mean, you know, the people that fought the fascists.
Andrew Coyne in a little bit of trouble. The Globe and Mail newspaper has been taking some heat this morning after publishing an opinion article questioning Canadian Conservatives' patriotism. In his essay, Coyne, who is best known for being the son of the Bank of Canada governor, argues that the Canadian right is going through something of the same agonies the left went through a century ago, when the Soviet Union was still viewed in some circles as a beacon of progress. When a great many fellow travelers took up the Moscow line, some even to the point of treason, he goes on, in virtually every other democratic country, patriotism is the province of the right. Only in Canada is it the monopoly of the left. Talk about lunacy.
I mean, there's so much that could be said about this article, but I almost don't want to, like, it's almost like you've got a garden and it doesn't grow many flowers, and then it grows a flower and it's like mutated and weird, and it's like, you know, it's not quite right. It's like, do you want to cut it down? But it's like, that's like my only flower. Andrew Coyne, in many ways, is like one of the only people in the Canadian media who is willing to like have a thought and follow it through and write it down, even if he gets it like awfully wrong, like appallingly wrong, as he has here. I'm still reluctant to chop down my deformed, mutated flower here, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to preen it, and I'll just say he compares the Conservatives in Canada to the old commies in Europe and in America and Canada, who, like in the West, who had an affection for the Soviet Union because they believed in the revolution. I mean, a much more shrewd and intelligent and incisive analogy would have been to have compared them to the Russian emigres, like the whites, the people who lost that civil war in Russia to the murderous, genocidal, psychopathic communists, and then had to go places. Well, some of them had to live in hiding. I mean, they were probably exterminated. Most of them were, or they went to places like Europe because they wanted to get away from the revolution that had stolen their country from them. I think that's a better comparison, because the Conservatives in Canada that I see, that I think he's talking about, they look at their country as having been stolen from them by revolutionaries who masqueraded as members of the Liberal Party. We were talking about one of them 20 minutes ago, weren't we? Pierre Trudeau. He's one of the main villains of this story. If you look at it from the perspective of the people that Andrew Coyne is talking about, but also Justin Trudeau, they look at everything that's happened, the complete dismantling of Canadian national identity, mass, mega, giga migration, formal multiculturalism, the denigration of things like, or the downplaying of things like Christianity, a foundation, whether you like it or not, a foundational feature of Canada, what Canada is, what Canada was for, when it was made, what the whole point of it was, and many other things, like talk about Canada as a post-national country, a post-nation nation. Did he say that? A post-national country. Like all of this stuff that the Liberals have done, yeah, believe it or not, there are some normal people who they call Conservatives, or who that Economist lady would call far-right. There are some people who look at that and say, my country's been stolen from me by a revolution, and I'm very, very upset about this. You know, I don't know what I feel towards Canada anymore. That's a more honest representation of who these people are. They're not like people who sympathize with the Bolsheviks, because those people were sympathizing with people who destroyed a country and built a new one. That's not who the Conservatives are sympathizing with. They're not sympathizing with that urge, that instinct to destroy and revolutionize and rebuild, start again. That's not who they are. These Conservatives, just the ones that Andrew Coyne's talking about, to my sort of reckoning, to my eye, they see the changes that have been instituted by the Liberal Party and they're disgusted by it, and they feel like Canada's changed to such an extent that they're not even sure if it's Canada anymore. Now, if he would only engage on that level, then I wouldn't have to massacre my precious little flower, and I could just leave it and let it grow in the garden.
But
alas, I have to get in there.
I'm going to change his headline to make it more accurate. Canadian Conservatives have a patriotism problem with the Liberal Party. I think that fixes it, because it's not to the nation. It's to the Liberal Party, and I think a lot of people believe that if you're not patriotic to the Liberal Party, you're not patriotic to Canada. The role of the official opposition is to oppose, is to critique, is to make it better, not to jump on board the Liberal Party train, the Red Express. Look at this, though. CBC. I mean, some people are picking up the Toronto Sun. CBC is a disinformation watchdog. If people don't make noise about this, this is going to happen. This is literally going to happen. And then David Cochrane there with his pen is going to be deciding that Jim and Ian get no airplay. Because you need to get the information from the social cohesers. The cohesers. I made up a word right there. The cohesers. They're the glue that holds Canada together. Rosemary and David Cochrane, you know, they roll the sausage rolls in their hand to get their hands all greasy, and then they just smooth it over you as they take all the money out of your pocket. And they just fill your pocket with sausage grease.
Sausage grease, yeah, better than nothing.
Here's Catherine Swift's organization. Liberals want to fight the CBC to fight misinformation. And then she's saying that should worry everybody. And then it is, absolutely. If you don't push back against this, this will be bad. This is like 1984, where the Office of Misinformation becomes the Bible.
Look at that lovely comparison there. It's like McDonald's becoming the chair of the National Nutrition Council. That's good. That's good analogizing.
3 Big Macs a day. 3 Big Macs a day, 17 orders of fries, and wash that down with 3 gallons of Coke. And the stock price of McDonald's will shoot right up. And because what really matters at the end of the day, that Rogers Communications stock goes up and that McDonald's stock goes up. It doesn't matter. And the hospital stock will go up because you'll be filling the hospitals with your heart disease and so many other problems by, you know, gorging yourself on. How many Big Macs a day do you think you could do?
Probably 5.
5? Every day? For how many days could you keep that up?
I don't know. He made a movie about it, didn't he, that fella? Morgan, what's his name? Morgan Spurlock?
So we should probably do a show then. We should probably do a show
as he did.
Where Ian does 5 Big Macs a day. We weigh you in every morning. 5 Big Macs a day, washed down with a gallon of Coke, and then we just see the results. Yeah, there you go. There's Ian, just like 1 Big Mac, 1 Big Mac, 2 Big Macs, that's 2, 3 Big Macs, 4 Big Macs.
1 mixed social cohesion burger, please, my lord.
Here's our this day in history, because we always do this day in history, because sometimes the history is better than the current situation. The Mormon pioneers enter Salt Lake Valley, actually. There you go. 148 Mormon pioneers arrived in Utah, Salt Lake Valley.
Really interesting time, that.
Okay.
Very, very interesting indeed.
They're
getting a TV show was made recently. I can't remember what it's called, but if you Google it, you'll find what it is, and it portrays the Mormons very negatively. It's been very, very violent and you know, not very nice people. But it was an interesting time. That it's fascinating, Mormonism, like this American religion that just, you know, somehow came to be.
What was hilarious is, I'm going to share a story. It's probably not a great story, but I'm going to share it anyway, because I was a young guy. We were about 30 years ago when we got in Kelowna here. And I was working on the renovation because our house was a little wrecked when we got it. So we were tearing out the kitchen and the cabinets, and there was no air conditioning. It was the middle of summer. It was hot, like hot. And I answered the door, and there's 2 boys there with the white shirts, right? I think the short sleeve shirts and the black, you know, the pocket protector and all that stuff. And they were the Mormon boys. And they were there spreading the word. And they said, well, they said at first that they were just here to help. And I said, oh, yeah. And they said, no, we want to help you. And I had to tear these cupboards out. And I said, well, come on in then. Give me a hand. So they came in and they helped me tear down the kitchen. And I thought, great. And then they said, we'd like to come back and talk some more. And I said, sure, bring your friends, because I got the big backyard. And a big backyard that was just weeds were up to your neck. I said, bring back as many as you can, because we could get all those weeds taken out. They never came back.
Didn't want to be taken advantage of.
What's that? Slackers?
Yeah. I've had a few in their home province of home state of Utah. I've had quite a few very pleasant encounters with.
No, they're nice people.
Mormons. Very it's part of their it's part of the faith, isn't it, to do good deeds?
Yeah. I guess I asked too much though. 1911, American explorer historian Herman Bingham brought worldwide attention to the Inca citadel at Machu Picchu in Peru. Did I say that right? Machu Picchu?
Basically, yeah, that's how most people say it. I don't know how it's said in the ancient Inca language.
Talking about communism, 1959, the kitchen debate. U.S. Vice President Nixon and Soviet Premier Nikolai Khrushchev held their famous impromptu debate about the American national expedition in Moscow, arguing about capitalism versus communism in a model kitchen. Cool.
Yeah.
And we got a little bit more about our friend
Weird guy.
Tricky Dick. We got a tricky guy here right now. When is he going to get the name Tricky Dick? We talked about the Apollo takeoff, the blast off, but now we got the splashdown. 1969 Apollo 11 splashdown. The Apollo 11 crew, Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins, the first humans to land on the moon, safely returned to Earth. I was on the deck of that aircraft carrier that collected them. They got a model of that capsule there in the bay. It's kind of cool how aircraft carriers work too. Interesting. Go on one if you get a tour, these old ones. Even if Canada had an old one, that'd be one more than we have right now. Right?
Maybe the British will sell us one of theirs when it finally stops working.
It's got holes in the side. Holes in the side. Oh, those are ventilation holes, they'll tell us.
And then we can put it in Hudson Bay.
1974, the Supreme Court rules on Watergate tapes. There you go. Tricky Dick to surrender the White House tapes in the Watergate scandal. And he later resigned. And Gerald Ford, remember Gerald Ford? I think he was the golfer, right? He tripped a lot, didn't he? That was his claim to fame, like stumbling around. I heard that song. I think it was what was her name? Stumbling Around. Who's that sing? It's right on the tip of my head. The singer of that, Suzi Quatro, Stumbling Around. I think it's Suzi Quatro.
His successor was even clumsier, though.
Jimbo,
yeah. He and also got attacked by a rabbit, which is something that
Jimmy,
never
the peanut
happened to Ford.
He was one of the most bumbling presidents ever, and also part of that. We studied that when I was going through for my designation, the groupthink, which is what we have going on in Canada. Groupthink, when the space shuttle Challenger blew up, where they made it go up there and the O-rings didn't seat, and one of the engineers signed off knowing that it was a bad idea, and it blew up on takeoff. And that was the end of the Challenger program for a long time too, or the space shuttle program. But hey, if you're watching all the news, if you're watching a really big show all the time and you're going to drown your sorrows, it's National Tequila Day. I had a tequila experience, I think, when I was 20. That was my last tequila experience because it was a bad one. Hugging the bowl and thinking that toilet bowl is nice and cool as you have dry heaves.
Yeah, I've had some horrible experiences with tequila. It's just not. Sorry,
it's a drug.
Tequila
it's literally
enthusiasts.
A drug. It's literally a drug.
I don't think it's very nice. I don't think it's very tasty.
And after a tequila day, you do need an international self-care day. I've never done the cucumbers on the eyes. I don't know. Does that work? Like, what is that?
What is it? Something to do? There is some logic to it, but I can't remember what it is now. But it's some. I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend. But there's some logic to it. I've had it explained to me once.
Sin Meister said she's had the tequila experience. Well, Diane says she loves tequila. There you go.
If I'm going to have a spirit, it has to be whiskey, doesn't it? I mean, that's That's the finest of the spirits. Though sake is quite good as well. We like a bit of that.
It's national. This is my indulgence. It's got to be my indulgence. It's National Drive-Through Day. I've indulged on the In-N-Out burger. Like if that's the only drive-through I could ever go through, make it an In-N-Out burger. Double cheese In-N-Out burger. Order of fries. And a soda water. They got the lemons there too. At In-N-Out burger, you can have yourself a soda water. They don't even charge you for it. And an soda water, you can put as many lemons in as you want, as much ice in it as you want. You can go to town. And here's your big chance. It's National Tell an Old Joke Day. You got any? You got to have one.
I can't, like, if you put me on the spot like that, I can't do it. No.
Oh, I'm going to give it. It's in honor of the Economist, their interviewer. I'm going to give you a knock knock joke. Knock knock.
Who's that?
Adolf.
Adolf who?
A golf ball hit me in the mouth. That's what I taught this way.
That's a good job that you didn't.
In the spirit of the
gone anywhere, couldn't it?
What's that?
That could have gone anywhere.
Could have gone anywhere. That's an old joke for you, though. Anybody else got any old jokes that you want to share before we sign off here? Why did the chicken cross the road? I'll bite who? Why, Diane? Why did the chicken cross the road? We're waiting, Diane.
We're all waiting. Pressure's on.
We're waiting. Diane's not sharing. That's like that's like Mojito Moscow. There you go. Saucehead in Ontario. Drum roll. We're waiting.
With one finger.
I don't know.
You get to the other side. There you go.
I knew that was coming. I thought maybe there was something else.
That's the oldest of the olds, that one, isn't it?
My granddaughter tells jokes, and she thinks she's just hilarious. Like she does the chicken one too, right? Because she just mixes it up. The turtle. She thinks they're new jokes when she just adds a different animal.
Yeah, my son has started to try and be funny, and he's like, "Do you want to see a magic trick?" And it just totally doesn't get the idea of a magic trick. He's like, "Wow, see that?"
We play sometimes driving the sound. What kind of a sound does this animal make? And she beat me. She's like, "What makes the sound nay nay?" You know?
Could be all kinds of animals. I would say a goat.
No, nay nay.
Oh, it's getting a bit horsey.
And I said horse, right? Which is the name you're gonna go. She's like, "No, unicorn."
Got you there,
You got me there. Anyway, that's it. That's our show. That's our week. What bee produces milk? A milk bee?
Don't let him. I know what he's gonna say. It's a word that begins with B.
Bitch.
Well, think about milk and the letter B. Anyway, I've got my Mark Carney out here. Because yesterday we were talking, see if I can, it's not even going to let us do it, is it?
No.
Oh no, it's censored. Anyway, because you were asking, we were debating, weren't we, what he said, whether it was 80% or 50%. He actually said both. But he said 80% of fossil fuel reserves. But then in brackets he says half of gas, 1/3 of oil, and 3/4 of coal. So there you go.
I was right. You were right. We're all right.
Somewhere around here.
That's a song too, right? We're all right. Isn't that a Beatles song? We're all right.
Probably.
Hey, the only thing I want to say to people is push back. Push back. Don't let them silence you, because the truth will set you free, literally set you free. Share this far and wide, because the truth will set you free. You're not crazy. You can take your tinfoil hat off. You can wrap your salmon in, put it on the barbecue, and have yourself a good meal if you can afford salmon at this point. You got to push back against these taxation schemes, because literally the clowns run the politics. We need to get good people in politics. We need to stop the clowns. We gave you David Eby's email address there at the beginning. Send him a thing and say, "You're such a smart guy. You should be smarter than these two goofs on this show. Come on here and make them feel like, you know, show them, school them. School Jim and Ian on the, here's his email address. Send away. Tell them to come on the Really Big Show. Have the courage to come on and answer to Canadians. Come on, Mr. Eby. Explain to us. Explain to us
You're
why.
gonna get done. You're
Why
gonna get done for
11 million
inciting a riot.
Why 10 million Canadians go without under the policies of your government and the Liberal government that's been running this nation for almost 11 years now. Explain it to us like we're stupid. I'd like to know. Thanks to Charles McDonald as well, always. Cheerio, everybody. Have a good weekend. And we're back here Monday. And guess who's going to join us on Monday? None other than John Carpe. John Carpe will be with us Monday. And we do have an interview coming up with Ambassador Hoekstra shortly. And we're trying to get more interviews. And we're going to start giving you the email addresses so you can go get some of these interviews for us, right? We had on today, we had Ian Connerty, a journalist from way back. You got the hat. I think we should get a hat, eh? People would lose their minds if you got a hat, right? Can't cover up the locks, right? That's it. That's our show. Have a good weekend. God bless you, and live long and prosper. And fight, fight, fight.